they made a deal. Now, governments want to make those kind of deals. That's fine, as long as because that was basically a political negotiation. You're putting 5,000 Taliban back on the battlefield. That ain't negotiating with another government. You're putting 5 of them back on the battlefield. That ain't negotiating with another government that's directly contradicting this thing that you claim. Those were all bad deals. Was the Brittany Griner thing a bad deal? I think it was great for her. If I was in the middle of it, it would have been better. And she still would have come up.
Yeah, there's some technical aspects of that negotiation. What do you think is the value, just thinking about it, of meeting in person for negotiation?
I think it's a great idea.
Can I just follow that tangent along? There's a war in Ukraine now, been on over a year. It's for me personally, given my life story is a deeply personal one, and I'm returning back to that area of the world. I was there. Vladimir Zelensky said he doesn't want to talk to Vladimir Putin. Do you think they could get in a room together and say you were there in a room with Putin and Zelensky, and Biden is sitting in the back drinking a cocktail, or maybe he is at the table participating? How is it possible through negotiation, through the art of conversation, to find peace in this very tense geopolitical conflict?
I think it's eminently possible. I think getting people together in person has always been a good idea. Now, how many times, who's getting them together, under what circumstances, and how many times you get them together? The documentary, The Human Factor, about the Mideast peace negotiations, mostly through the 90s, mostly in the Clinton administration, got kicked off under Bush 41, and then the documentary continues through Trump, but just touching basically on it. But they're getting Arafat and the different Israeli prime ministers together in person. And these guys do not want to talk to each other, and depending upon the prime minister, the mere thought of being on the same planet with him was offensive. And they started getting these guys together in person regularly, and they started seeing each other as human beings. And they started realizing that there was enough room on the planet for them, and that people dying was stupid. And they would slowly work things out by getting these guys together in person. So how long does it take? Who's hosting it? But it's a good idea.
With the skill of achieving that thing that you talk about a lot, which is empathy. And I would say in that case, not just empathy, but empathy plus a bit, you might disagree with this, but a drop of compassion in there.
I think compassion is helpful, but it's not essential. Like if you just know where I'm coming from, like the feeling of being understood.
Yeah, heard and understood. That's powerful.
And again, I know I picked the vast majority of this up on Andrew's podcast, but it did up in other places because early on, when we were putting the book together, Paul Ross, the writer, my son, uncredited co-author. So the book's really a collaboration between me, my son Brandon, and Paul Ross. And we're driving for that phrase. When somebody feels like what you've said is completely their position, they say that's right. Not you're right, but that's right. So Paul says, I think what's happening here is you're triggering a subtle epiphany in someone. So I'm like, all right, I'll buy that. So I started looking up the neuroscience of the feeling of epiphany. Getting a hit of oxytocin and serotonin. Oxytocin is a bonding drug. You bond to me. I don't bond to you. When you feel completely understood by me, you bond to me. Then in one of the relationship podcasts that I'm listening to on Andrew, says oxytocin inclines people to tell the truth. You're more honest. All right, so you feel deeply understood by me, you bond to me, and you start getting more honest. Serotonin, the neurochemical satisfaction. Epiphany, you feel oxytocin and serotonin. Being understood. All right, I got you bonding to me, I got you being more honest with me, and I got you feeling more satisfied, so you want less. What more do you want out of a negotiation?
Of course, there's already with leaders and great negotiators, there's walls built up, defense mechanisms against that. Right? You're resisting this basic chemistry. But yes, you should have that. You should work towards that kind of empathy. And I personally believe I don't actually understand why, but I've observed it time and time again. But getting in a room together and really talking, whether privately or publicly, but really talking, and like this. So I'll comment on this. So right now, this is being recorded, and a few folks will hear this. But when you really do a good job of this kind of conversation, you forget there's cameras.
Right.
And that's much better than there being even a third person in the room. But often when world leaders meet, there's like press or there's others in the room.
Right.
Like, as you know, man to man or man to woman, you have to like meet in a saloon, just two of you talk. There's some intimacy and power to that to achieve the if you're also willing to couple that with empathy, to really hear the other person.
Yep.
I don't know what that is. That's like a deep intimacy that happens.
And I think there's actually, because we get asked this in the Black Swan group all the time, like, how do you Zoom, that's bad, because you don't have the same visual feedback on Zoom. And that's not true. Like you and I see you from the waist up right now. If you're on Zoom, I'd be looking at you from the waist up.
I'm not wearing pants, yeah. For the internet. I apologize for that. Sorry, yeah. You only see a small portion.
That's usually where I go. But anyway,
I'm glad we both have ridiculous. I appreciate it.
But what makes us different in person? I actually think there's energy that we're unable. We don't have the instrumentation to define yet. And I think that there's a feel. I think there's an actual energetic feel that changes. And just because we can't measure it, doesn't mean it's not there.
Yeah, I would love to figure out what that is. Folks that are working on virtual reality are trying to figure out what that is. During the pandemic, everybody was on Zoom and Microsoft. Everybody was trying to figure out how do we replicate that. I'm trying to understand how to replicate that because it sure is not fun to travel across the world just to talk to Snowden or Putin or Zelensky. I'd love to do it over Zoom, but it's not the same. It's not the same.
No, it's not the same. I go in a room with people.
You would go in the room?
I would, yeah, 1,000%. I get it. That's right out.
That's right. Well, first you would give him the that's right, probably.
Getting and giving. See that, and here's the issue that trips everybody up in negotiation. The difference between hearing and speaking. The same words are vastly different. And what I'm looking for is the responses I'm getting out of you. Because if you can't, first, that's right, especially, like if you can't appreciate what that really means, hearing it is unsatisfying.
So those two words are really important. We talk about this.
Yeah.
What does that's right mean? Why is it important?
Well, it means that what you just heard you think is unequivocally the truth. Like it's dead on. It hit the target. It's a bullseye. And there's been a topic of discussion, especially between my son and I, a lot. Like, what happens? This oxytocin bonding moment. And his contention has always been like, Donald Trump is the poster child of what it means. Because Donald Trump's addressing an audience, he's in a debate with Hillary or he's giving a speech someplace. And when the people that are devoted to him, when they believe that what he's just said is completely right, it's insightful, they look at him or they look at the TV and they go, that's right. And it's what people say when they're bought into what they just heard. Now, if you're not convinced of the way that Donald Trump's followers are bonded to him, and he also, just like this, in my view, destroys the idea of common ground. Because when he first started to run for president, the pundits all said, he's a New Yorker. Nobody in the Republican Party is going to like it. It's middle America. It's blue collar. It's regular common folks. Factory workers. Then I got to like Trump because he's from New York and he went to Wharton. He's an Ivy League dude. He's the son of a wealthy real estate mogul and he had $1 million handed to him when he got out of college. He's born with a silver spoon in his mouth. The rank and file Republicans are never going to accept this guy based on common ground. Look how smart that was.
Do you think he's a good negotiator? Do you think Donald Trump is a good negotiator?
No. I think he's a great marketer. If you look at his negotiation track record, right? So I started following Donald Trump in the 80s when I'm a last century guy. He's we've got mutual acquaintances. The minister that married him to Marla Maples was a friend of mine, close friend of mine. And in 1998, I threw a fundraiser in his apartment at Trump Tower that he attended. So, no shortage of mutual friends. We went to the same church. Still have mutual acquaintances, friends. And I've watched his track record, negotiation history, which is exactly his track record with North Korea. Where are we with North Korea? What was the deal that he made with North Korea? See, your answer is the same as everybody else's. Well, I remember it started out with a lot of fanfare, but I don't know what happened because nothing ever happened.
It's more public fanfare, so marketing-minded presentation.
Starts out with a bang. It doesn't cut the deal in a really short period of time. It moves on, and everybody wonders what happened because there was so much fanfare at the beginning. Now, at the beginning, him even opening that dialogue with North Korea was masterful. Like I was such a fan when you got a president of the United States that is willing to sit down and talk with a leader of another nation. And every other president, all their advisors are saying, the leader of North Korea is beneath you. You cannot dignify him by responding to him directly. Consequently, the Trump administration inherits a can of worms that's been simmering for 30 years. He didn't get a sense of that. And he opened up a dialogue where nobody else was capable of opening that dialogue. And then it just went away. Nobody knows what happened. And there was no deal. Now, great negotiators make deals.
What do you think about these accusations that he's a narcissist? That if you're a narcissist, does that help you or hurt you?
Is there a more popular term these days than narcissist? Like everybody's a narcissist.
Everybody you don't like is a narcissist.
Like the homeless guy down on the corner, he's a narcissist. That's why he's there.
Yeah. It's lost meaning for you?
Yeah. First of all, most psychological terms. As a hostage negotiator, and really, we were never into psychology. And we steered away from it. Psychology is, at best, soft science. If it's not informed these days, if it's not informed by real studies or neuroscience. The guys that I'm impressed with these days, psychologists, neuroscientists. Now I'm interested in that guy. But then the psychology convention. Do you get them all together and they all agree?
But also the interesting thing about psychology is each individual person is way more complicated than the category psychology tries to create. And there's something about the human brain. The moment you classify somebody as a narcissist or depressed or bipolar or insane in any kind of way, for some reason you give yourself a convenient excuse not to see them as a complicated human being, to empathize with them. I had that when I was I did an interview with Kanye West, and then there's a lot of popular opinions about him being mentally unwell and so on. And I felt that kind of way of thinking is a very convenient way of thinking, to ignore the fact that he's a human being that, again, wants to be understood and heard. And that's the only way you can have that conversation.
Yeah, I agree completely. That's right. I feel so close to you.
It might be because I'm not wearing pants. All right. So
you're funnier than I am. It bothers me.
All right. I'll say something stupid soon. Don't worry about it. we said we were talking about terrorists and not negotiating with terrorists. Is there something?
Nice job going all the way back to where that rabbit hole started.
We're Alice in Wonderland right now. Is there something about walking away, of not negotiating? Is there power in that?
All right, so it depends upon whether or not you're doing with integrity or a tactic to start with. And then also, hostage negotiators are successful 93% of the time, kind of across the board. Which means that 7% of the time it's going to go bad. And that was my old boss, Gary Nestor. I learned so much from Gary. But a phrase that he used over and over and over again until I finally worked the case and went bad was, this is going to be the best chance of success, best chance of success. And then something went bad, and I remember thinking like, well, best chance of success, there's no guarantee of success. So your question is, other negotiations you should walk away from. If you got no shot at success, then don't negotiate. And there, you have to accept the fact that some deals you're never going to make. Even we teach in my company, it's not a sin to not get the deal. It's a sin to take a long time to not get the deal. And, Gary, in his infinite wisdom, they realized that there was something called suicide by cop. And that it might have, Gary was very much into clusters of behavior. He kept us away from psychological terms, and there would be clusters of behavior that would be high-risk indicators. And he wrote a block of instruction called high-risk indicators, which meant if you start seeing this stuff show up, this thing's probably going bad. And you're going to need to recognize that from the very beginning and adjust accordingly. And it's the same way in business and personal. I'm talking to the head of a marketing company. I have tremendous respect. I admire what this guy in this company does. Started from scratch. He borrowed space in the back of a drugstore to start his company. And now it's hugely successful. And he's laying out to me that he finally had to confront the client and walk away from it. And he said, how do you think I handled it? And my answer was 1,000% correct. And as a matter of fact, the behavior that he indicated, he's a type, and you should have walked away sooner because this guy was playing the whole time. Al-Qaeda in 2004, they're playing. They're not negotiating. We called them out. I don't think you negotiate. He wouldn't say it exactly like that, but that was absolutely the approach. Confront people on their behavior in a respectful way.
And signal that you're willing to walk away.
And mean it, 1,000%.
And mean it. Is that terrifying? I mean, it's scary because you don't want to really walk away. But do you have to really want to walk away?
Well, this gets core values, your reality. If it's an abundant world, it's not scary to walk away. If it's a finite world with limited opportunities, then it's hard.
But you have to use that worldview if you're willing to actually walk away.
Yeah.
It could be walking away from a lot of money. It could be walking away from something that's going to hurt people. Because if you lose a hostage.
Yeah, well, but if they're not going to let the hostage out, suicide by cop, they ain't letting them go.
The 7%, how do most negotiations fail?
The bad guys were never there to make a deal in the first place. If it was suicide by cop, if they were there if they're on a killing journey, it's an Israeli phrase. If they're on a killing journey, and the actions that they're currently engaged in are part of that killing journey.
Killing journey. Is there advice you can give about? You mentioned Israel, Palestine, the Middle East. Taking on a few conversations on that topic, is there hope for that part of the world? And from that hope, is there some advice you could lend?
Yeah, I think there's hope. Then I get friends on both sides. Also, when after I left the FBI, most people listening to this probably not going to remember who Rodney Dangerfield was.
Oh, come on.
But he's a
Still
comedian.
doesn't get any respect. Yeah.
Yeah. And
New Yorker? Is he a New Yorker?
I think he was a New York guy.
Or like Jersey or something.
Yeah, and he did a movie a long time ago called Back to School. He went back to school. He was an old guy back to school. So I went back to school after I left the FBI. I did get a master's at Harvard Kennedy. And that's where I'm running across people on both sides. And when they could talk, they said, let's start from the premise that both sides want a better life for our kids, which is this version that I was telling you earlier from Tom Girardi. Let's pick a point in the future that we're all happy. And they found that they could talk. All right, so it might not be better for us. How do we make it better for our kids? And that's where the hope derives from. Because I think both sides ultimately want it to be better for their kids, which is why they still engage in interactions, and which is why I think the leadership, regardless of how compromised it might be on either side, there are few straight players in the game in the Middle East, or anywhere for that matter. But they want a better future for their kids. You get people who really want a better future for your kids, now you start talking about, well, how do we work our way back? And then, all right, so we got a mutual goal in the future. The Israeli-Palestinian negotiations are also, for me, interesting because you mentioned Clubhouse about almost 2 years ago now, when Israel was shelling Gaza. They hit the UPI office. They were hitting. They got fed up with the rocket attacks from Hamas, and of course Hamas is putting rockets at the UPI office, or the AP office, whichever press office was there. How's that office going to be there otherwise? Hamas is running a show. You're not going to run that office unless you let them store weapons. That's just part of the game. And where are they going to store them in specially designated ammunition dumps? No, they're going to put them in schools. They're going to put them in hospitals. They're going to put them in all places that when Israel hits them, they're going to look really bad. So after a while, Israel gets fed up and starts shelling Gaza, and they're hitting. A friend of mine, Nicole Bone, is hosting rooms on Clubhouse, and she says, you got to come on. The vitriol is killing me. These are alternative screen matches. Nobody's talking to anybody. I said, all right, cool. We'll go on. We'll do it and watch. We won't have a single argument. We'll invite people on from both sides. There was one rule. Before you started to describe what you thought of the other side, you had to say, before I disagree with you, here's what I think your position is. And you got to continue to state the other side's position until they agree that you got it. Now, what happened? No agreement and no arguments. That was what we were really going for. We wanted to show people on both sides in one of their emotional time frames. If your only requirement was you had to state the other side's position first, nobody got out of it. Did it work? That's exactly what happened. We wanted to show people you can have conversations that do not devolve into screaming matches with vitriol, talking about how you're dedicated to the destruction of the other side. Just first, see if you can outline where they're coming.
That's really impressive because I've just having seen on Clubhouse people, which part of the reason I like Clubhouse, you get to hear voices from all sides. They were emotionally intense. It was. I'm sweating just in the buildup of your story here. I thought it was gonna go to hell, but you're saying it kind of worked.
Now one person lost control. Now of the two sides, the people that were speaking on behalf of the Israelis were a little better at articulating supportive positions for the Palestinians. Most of the people who want to speak up on behalf of the Palestinians, they want to start like, you're doing this, and I say, no, you can go there, just not yet. Before you go there, you can say that all you want. Before you go there, you got to try to articulate to them where they're coming from. They got to tell you got it right. What would consistently happen is there's a leveling of a person to try to see the other side's perspective and articulate. It's enormously beneficial to the person who's trying to do it, which was really the point that we were trying to make.
It's a really interesting exercise. I mean, that by way of advice. So if it works at Clubhouse, for people who don't know, it's like a voice app where you can be anonymous. It's really regular people, but regular people can also be anonymous. It can be chaos. If it works there, that's really interesting. Or when you sit down for a conversation across the table from somebody, don't have them even steel man the other side. Have them just state the other side. Just explain your understanding.
Yeah,
That's it.
and every now and then I'll jump in. Like, if there's somebody supporting Israel, whoever the heck they were, and they'd say a couple things. And the Palestinian guy would be like, or gal, or supportive of them, would say, I'd say, let me jump in. First of all, I know what the Nakba is. The Nakba is a catastrophe. That's the day Israel. For the rest of the world, Israel refused the Nakba. I said, you've got members of your family that is still walking around carrying keys to the front door of the house. And they'd be like, yeah. And I'd say, you feel bad that, in point of fact, that in World War II, the world stood back and watched while the Nazis threw the Jews off the building. The only problem was they landed on you. And they'd be like, yeah, that's where they're coming from. So articulating deeply what the other side feels was transformative for both people in the process.
What's the toughest negotiation you've ever been a part of, or maybe observed or heard of? What's a difficult case just stands out to you, or maybe just one of many?
Well, the stuff we went through with Al Qaeda in and around Iraq and Saudi. First one was in Saudi, 2004 time frame. The hardest part about that was working with family members and not deceiving them about the possibility of the outcome.
Yeah, how do you talk to family members? Is that part of the negotiation?
Yeah, empathy, learning empathy the hard way. And then being able to take it up to higher levels. At its base level, a guy that we're working with now that's coaching us in the U.S. and is a business partner, his name is Jonathan Smith. He pointed out to us that there's a shu-ha-ri concept. Are you familiar with shu-ha-ri? It's a martial arts concept. And shu is do it exactly as the master is telling you to do it. Wax on, Karate Kid stuff. Ha is when you've done the repetitions enough times, you're getting a feel for it, and you begin to see the same lessons coming from other masters. You're seeing the same thing show up in other places. And at the re level, you're still in the discipline, but you're making up your own. It's almost a flow state. And you don't realize that you're making up your own. Now, if somebody asks you where you learn that, you probably say, my sensei taught it to me, my master taught it. This will come back around to negotiating with families pretty quick. We did this once because there's a bunch of people we coach, business people that are scared of the amount of money that they're losing if we're not coaching them regularly. One of these guys, Michael, we're interviewing him for a social media post about 2 years ago. And Michael says, yeah, you got to gather data with your eyes. And I remember thinking, I went, I like that. I said, where did you hear that? He goes, I don't know. I heard it from you, I think. And I was like, no. I didn't remember saying that.
Yeah.
That's the first time I've heard that. He's in real. So what's this got to do with families? Empathy at its base level and the shoe level, I learned it on the suicide hotline for saying, like, you sound angry. I'm just calling out the elephant in the room. Your emotions, what's driving you. I'm throwing a label on your act. and I'm saying you sound, or it sounds like you are. Because that's the basic Karate Kid wax on approach. Now, there are a lot of hostage negotiators that'll tell you he doesn't work at home. Not true. They've never gotten out of shoe. You're getting ready to talk to your significant other, and you want to go someplace that you know is going to make her angry. You want to go do something.
Well, that's real negotiation right there.
You can say to her, you sound angry, in which case she's going to blow up because her reaction is, you made me angry, bozo. How can you act like you're an innocent third party, or that you were independent of how I feel bad? And you learn a little bit more, and you say the aha level is probably going to make you. And then what I did with families, I knew how they felt before I walked up. I knew that they were scared to death. You find out that your husband, your father, your brother has been grabbed by Al Qaeda or in the business of chopping people's heads off. You're going to be horrified. I can't walk into them and go like, you sound angry. Of course I'm angry, you idiot. But knowing what they are, I used to walk into families' houses and I'd say, I know you. Now, what do the circumstances dictate that they should also be? They're going to feel abandoned by their government. They're going to feel totally alone. They're going to be scared. And they're going to be angry because they feel the government abandoned. Now, in point of fact, is this an accurate statement? That their loved one voluntarily went into a war zone, voluntarily went someplace the government told them not to go? Are the facts that the government abandoned them? Absolutely not. As a matter of fact, the government tried to get them to not go, and they went in. But that doesn't change how they felt in the moment. And I'd walk into a house and I go, I know you. I know you feel abandoned and alone. And I know you're horrified. And I know you feel the United States government is abandoned. And they would look at me and go like, yeah. What do we do now? Now we're ready to ride.
Is there Al-Qaeda in general, is there a language barrier too? It could be just barriers of different communication styles. I mean, you got like a New York way about it. That might make somebody from like, I don't know, Laguna Beach uncomfortable. Do you feel that language barrier in communication is that language and communication style in itself creating a barrier?
You got a barrier when you think that your way is the
Sure, that's the biggest barrier.
yeah, like and that happens all the time. When people talk about what about cross-cultural negotiation? You know, what hand do I got to shake hands with? Sure. So that I can get my way. Well, if you strip it all down, we're all basically the same blank slate. We're born. Everybody's got a limbic system. Everybody's limbic system works pretty much the same way. People are driven by the same sorts of decisions. How does this affect my future? What am I at risk of losing? How does this affect my identity? You know, kind of kidnapper. You're a New York City businessman. You're a tobacco farmer in the South. All making those same decisions based on those same things. So as soon as I start to navigate that, and I tailor my approach, which is what empathy is, to what you think, how you see things. So I can be the biggest goofball ever from, if you live in the South, yeah, maybe I'm a New Yorker, or I'm somebody from LA, or somebody from Chicago. But my geography is foreign to you. As soon as I start dialing in on how you see things, suddenly you're listening.
What about the three voices you talk about? The different voices you can use in that communication.
Right. The assertive voice, direct and honest. I'm a natural born assertive.
Natural born. I thought we're all blank slate. You're born.
Well, that's it. Stop catching me on what I said. How dare you accuse me of what I've said? You quote Bono. I stand accused of what I've said, the things I've said.
It's a good line. He's got a few good lines.
Yeah.
So assertive voice, you're born that way. Which one? What are the others?
Analyst. You're an analyst.
And I can tell you're assertive.
Yeah.
What's an analyst?
Well, an analyst is close to
Smarter, more thoughtful.
No, as a matter of fact. Look, you ever look at the decision tree?
Yeah.
See, you like it too, don't you?
So decision trees, I'm a computer scientist, so I like mathematical, systematic ways of seeing the world.
It's an analyst. You think Donald Trump would ever say that? But unlikely.
But is he more the assertive?
He's a natural born assertive, yeah.
Are all New Yorkers like this? Is this something in the water?
No, that's the craziest thing. I mean, there's an aspect of the city can handle. And, New York's Northeast, not just New York, but the Northeast is a little more the aspect of the area, of the culture of the area. Individuals still boil down into the three types across the board.
What's the third one?
Accommodator, smiling, optimistic, hopeful. I'm 1,000% convinced that the phrase "hope is not a strategy" is designed at people's frustration over a third of the population being accommodators that are hope-driven. I hope this works out. And they're very relationship. On the surface, they're very relationship-oriented. They tend to appear to be very positive, and they are. But it's really built around hope.
And the idea is you can adopt these differences.
You can learn them. They're all learnable. The analysts are often mistaken for accommodators because, as you said before, the analysts are more introspective, more analytical. They're looking at systems of work, and if they like to learn, they notice that accommodators make more deals. They also notice that there's a higher failure rate of the deals. But since they notice stuff and they think about it, they catch on faster than assertives do that the pleasant nature of an accommodator contributes strongly to making deals. Like my daughter is an analyst. Another descriptor we have in that analyst are assassins. An analyst is sniping from 1,000 yards out in the middle of the night, and you never know what hits you, and they're really happy with that.
But how has assertiveness, the assertive voice, served you in negotiation?
Poorly. The assertive voice is almost always counterproductive. It feels like getting hit in the face with a brick, and that's almost always counterproductive. So for me to be more effective, especially in a negotiation, I'll need to slow down and smile.
I heard that Teddy Roosevelt was a good negotiator, and he was extremely stubborn. And perhaps the right term for that would be assertive, but he picked his battles. There's some value to holding strong to principles. So I don't even know if that's probably the opposite of empathy. Are there times when you can just be extremely stubborn to your principles? We do
it all the time. We're just nice about it.
Okay, it helps to be nice. You're saying.
Well, yes, because I need you to hear me. And the assertive tone of voice. So when we do our training, typically we do an exercise called 60 seconds of silence. Mm-hmm. And I play the bad guy bank robber, and I ask you to be the hostage negotiator. And your job is to give you the full real constraints. And then you got to try and negotiate me out of the bank. Now we're doing this. Now the first voice that I always use in that exercise is the assertive voice, which is the command. It's the voice that always wants to talk to you. Issued loud and clear. It doesn't. To me, I don't feel like I'm attacking. I just feel like I'm being direct and clear. You, on the other hand. Now, we're doing this exercise in Austin a couple of years ago. The first participant is an Apple Watch. He tells us afterward that sitting still, not even answering, when he first gets hit in the face with these certain points, his heart rate jumps, which is a typical fight or flight reaction. It would be like on Friday. Your fight, flight, all kick into gear with your cloud. You're automatically in the moment. So if I want to make a great long-term deal with you, highly profitable, I'm agnostic to you being profitable. You be profitable with that. I'm here to make money for me. Me making a number will always hurt. Me making you feel attacked will always hurt.
So there's never a value in you make me friend.
What's up, pimp?
There's never.
How you doing, Jake? What's good in you? Very cool. Well, you're in the right spot.
Because he said,
how was your day?
Scientific data out there that's called strategic umbrage. Whether or not it's scientific,
that's all right.
call that into question.
Come on.
Studies
we're watching Hostage Negotiators on Lex Friedman.
And
yes, sir.
I get tired of me.
Can you see my camera in there?
He talked. There's never enough
to say about the great Andrew Huberman.
That's okay.
You should talk to Andrew. You're funnier than he is, though. I'll give you that. He's funny accidentally. He makes me laugh all the time. Not when he's trying to be funny.
Yeah, he's a really, he's one of the people in this world that's truly legit. He's a really strong scientist and a really strong communicator and a good human being. And those together don't come often, and it's nice to see. Yeah, treasure, national treasure. Anyway, you were saying.
Well, he sort of taught me how to think about that and studies and science, and also from different books that he's turned me on to. It's really helped me think about this stuff. The studies about strategic umbrage were done, ones that I've seen, that show it's effective. There were simulated negotiations with college students. A simulated negotiation with a college student. College students are going to sit down as part of assignment. They're going to sit down one time. They're going to sit down for 45 minutes, and they're going to think that if they didn't come to a deal at all, that they failed. And there's no ongoing implementation. There's just a deal, and then they walk away from that situation. So they got no actual real skin in the game. There's no deal on earth. You sit down and come to agreement in 45 minutes and never see each other again, because there's the implementation, even if it's only painful. So the data is flawed based on the way it was collected. It's a highly flawed study. And all data is, as you know, as a scientist, you just got to be aware of what the flaws are and decide whether or not that destroys the study. Or when you look at the data,
what up, pimp?
There's no such thing as perfect data. The data that says that
have you seen my YouTube channels?
Is based on flawed circumstances.
It's okay.
And you're strategic.
I just have a bunch going on at once. That's right.
That's nice to hear in some sense. It's nice to hear that empathy is the right one. It's like
best chance of success. Not that it works every time, just it works more.
Cool stuff.
It's like it's one of the most fun to execute. You just repeat 1 to 3 each words of what somebody said. Usually about it. The people that are invisible. They typically, for lack of a better term, tend to be both high IQ and high EQ. Like, I'm not a high IQ guy. I'm average dude. I like to think that I can learn. In EQ, emotional intelligence is a skill you can build. And I'm always working on building it. But a lot of really regular average people we're like, Mary, that's stupid. I'm not doing that. And I don't know why they don't like it. But when I find somebody that loves to mirror, I'll always ask them, how'd you just go on IQ? And typically their IQ. Now, I don't know why that combination attracts people to mirroring, because there's 9 skills, 8 from hostage negotiation, and the 9th really was tunnel. We just define that as a skill. And each one is different. It focuses on different components of the conversation. And a lot of people don't like to mirror. They find it so awkward. Like, I'm not particularly strong on mirroring. I got to do it intentionally. I'm good at label.
But does it almost always work?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it feels maybe awkward. It's true. There's got to be ways to signal that you're truly listening.
That's part of it.
I think you can do body language. But mirroring is probably just this trivial little hack.
It kind of is.
And you know what? There's a situation. I had a conversation with Stephen Cock, and he would say my name a lot throughout the conversation. He'd be like, "We have to understand, Lex, is that for some reason that was making me feel really good." I was like, he cares about me, and I wonder if that key, if everyone has that key, that could be name. Just using people's name could be powerful.
Using the name is really context driven. It can be extremely powerful with someone who's genuine, and it comes across in their demeanor, and it's used in a way that you can tell is meant to encourage you, as opposed to exploit you. And the people that are really into exploiting will also do the same thing.
So you have to avoid using the things that people that are exploiters, manipulators use, because it might signal to others that this person is trying to trick them.
You gotta be very careful.
What's the label? The thing you like?
Well, you said earlier that the whole progression. If you sound angry, it's probably going to make you angry. So I know you're angry. Labeling is hanging a label on an emotion or an aspect, and then just calling it out.
Is that almost always good? Could it be a source of frustration when the person is being angry and you kind of put a label on it? Call out the elephant. Is it possible that will lead to escalation of that feeling versus resolution?
Well, what would make it bad? Like, if I'm pointing out like that blatantly obvious, like if I say, look, I need you to get up and go down to the bank and make the deposit. Let's say I'm talking to somebody works with my company. Get on the phone with this person and make the appointment. And they go, sounds like you want me to talk to this person. Yeah. That would be annoying. If it's just so absurdly obvious that there's no insight in you at all. And as soon as you're demonstrating an awareness or a subtlety or an insight, either to you or to them, now we're making progress. So the only time the label could ever potentially be counterproductive is like if you weren't actually listening and the label is indicating that you're not listening. I'm teaching at USC and I'm teaching the labels. One of the kids in the class, he just wants to take the skills and make his deals and just hustle them. And he's just looking for a hustle. So he writes up a paper about, he goes, there's some malls, I think it was by Palm Springs or someplace, some island malls, a lot of people go to buy suits. So he goes in there and he immediately starts bargaining with no empathy. And throws a price to the guy. The guy's like, no. And he throws another price to the guy. The guy's like, no. And then
Welcome. Hope you live like a pimp.
I just shut down everything that you just said. If anything, it sounds like we're never going to make it. But he tried to use
Pleasure to meet you.
Now, the guy didn't get mad on the other side. It's like clearly
And at the core of everything, you have a bunch of, almost like hacks, like techniques you can use, but at the core of it is empathy.
The core is empathy. Yeah.
That's the main thing. And be able to just sit there and listen.
Yeah. Look for insights.
You know what? I like silence. Where like you're both sitting there chilling with a drink, looking up at the stars. There's a moment. The silence makes you kind of zoom out together, as opposed to playing a negotiation together. I don't know. There's some intimacy to the silence, and like if I'll ask a question and just sit for the answer or device. It's a big. It's like a big intimate thing.
Yes. Until they've experienced that or afraid.
Thanks.
And the reason I'm really comfortable with silence, I've this and also seeing a dynamic silence. Like, he coaches people. He says, "Don't stop till you run out of money."
Good line. He's a good line.
He is. That is. So there's so much to it. But the other two types of natural art you get why until you've experienced it, and you got instinct, intuition's giving you data once you've experienced it. But your amygdala, again, sorry, I realize it's more complicated than that. Until you've experienced it. So, based. How do they feel? Silent. So when you go silent, they're scared to death you're furious. Because that's how they indicate. The assertive thinks to use the analyst when silent because you wanted to talk some more. When in point of fact, you're thinking or, and I love your description, the feeling of intimacy, silence, and experiencing the moment. Because I'm actually going to factor that into trying to get the accommodators love shared intimacy. They would love to experience it. And I can see that being very compelling and be willing to cross that chasm and experience silence and see how it works.
Yeah, it's nerve-wracking, which is why it's intimate. Because you start thinking, what's the other person thinking? Are we actually going to do this? We're going to stay here for 10 seconds and go. I mean, there's tricks to it, I guess. Brandon says is to just count it out and realize through data that there's intimacy to it. I had a friend of mine, he lost his voice singing. So he couldn't, the doctor said he can't talk for a week just to heal the voice.
Yeah.
The vocal cords. But he hung out with other people, with friends, and didn't talk to them. He just hung out.
Uh-huh.
And he said it was really intimate. They both didn't talk to each other. They just sat there and enjoyed the time together. I don't know. It's a way to positive thing to try, maybe, with all the people in your life. Just hang out and don't say anything. As an experiment. Don't say anything to each other. But spend time.
Yeah, definitely.
It's interesting. I haven't tried this out. It's kind of like a treat, but more active as part of like. Anyway, is there other interesting techniques we can talk about here? So, for example, creating the illusion.
Yeah, it's basically by asking what and how questions. Because people don't know what to do or how to do it. That was really the way when the book was first written. That we really thought about what and how questions. It's giving the other side the illusion of control. And there's a lot more to it than that we've discovered. I mean, it triggers deep thinking and wears people down. Deep thinking can be exhausting.
You want. So what's the role of exhaustion in negotiation? Is that ultimately one?
You got to be careful. Some people exhaust intention. One of my negotiation heroes, a guy now who's unfortunately suffering from dementia and Alzheimer's. John Domenico Pico is the UN hostage negotiators that got all the Western hostages out of Beirut in the 80s. And he wrote a book called Man Without a Gun. And I'm acquainted with John. At this point in time, I don't think he has any memory of who I am at all. But he writes in his book, one of the great secrets of negotiations is exhausting the other side. Political negotiations, that could be Johnny was very deferential. He was in the middle of, in the 80s, leading up to about 1986-ish. Every negotiation involved warring parties in the Middle East that you can imagine. He was in Cyprus. He was in Afghanistan, Iraq and Iran. The Iranian government had tremendous trust in him as a Westerner, a representative of the UN. Got all the Westerners out of Beirut, and he was just ridiculously patient. And which I found exhausting. Would often find exhausting.
So exhaustion can be a component of finding resolution negotiation.
If it tamps down the negative emotions, often exhaustion will tamp down negative emotions. If it puts you, the real trick is really getting negative emotions out of the way, because you're dumber than a negative frame of mind.
So the goal is always positive emotion, as you talk about. That's what you're always chasing together.
I think so. Yeah.
And that's what that's right is about.
Yes.
Like whatever you're triggering, whatever the chemistry you're triggering in your brain, you're like, yeah, we're doing good here.
Yeah. I think so. Long-term success, absolutely.
How is the word "there" used and
The F-bomb.
The F-bomb, as you call it. How is it used and abused in negotiation?
It's usually used. It's most frequently used as a weapon. It's abused as a point of manipulation. It's what people say when they feel backed into a corner and they can't come up with any legitimate reason as to why they're being backed into a corner. Like nobody uses the word F-bomb. Nobody uses the word fair when they've got criteria to back them. So consequently, when somebody starts dropping it, you got to realize the other side's got no legitimate outside criteria. They're feeling very vulnerable. They can't explain it. They feel defensive. And it's saying, "Hey, look, I've given you a fair offer," is a way for me to knock you off your game if you're not aware of it. So a lot of cutthroat negotiators are going to use it on you to knock you off your game. The NFL strike probably now, it's been a good 10 years now. And maybe even longer. One of the sticking points was the owners were not opening their books to the players. Players wanted to see. And in order to not open their books, they just sent a rep held a press conference saying we've given the players a fair offer. Well, if it was fair, you'd open it.
Yeah.
If you gave them a fair offer and it was justified by words in your books, you'd open them to prove your point. So what ends up happening, though, that the owners gave the players a fair offer starts to get picked up in the middle, and then it starts getting repeated. Now that different people on the players' side are going, yeah, maybe they have given us a fair offer because people are being insecure about their own position. It's an enormously powerful word that can be used and it almost always comes up in every negotiation. It's shocking the number of times it comes up with people who don't really understand how or why it's coming.
So usually it's a signal of a not a good placement in negotiation.
Without question, I'm completely convinced that if the person is using the word as a means of getting what they want, then either accidentally or on purpose, either in their gut or they know they got a bad position, or their gut is afraid that they are. Do I use the word? What I'll say is, I want you to feel like I've treated you fairly. And if any given point in time you think I'm not treated fairly, I want you to stop me. And we're going to address it.
Big, ridiculous question, but how do you close the deal? How do you take the negotiation to its end. Is the implementation ultimately?
You got to pivot to agree upon implementation to really move out of the negotiation. And I might say, how do you want to proceed? And if you don't know, I might say, no warranty question. Is it a ridiculous idea if I share with you some ideas of how to proceed?
And then you agree on the actual steps, and that's the implementation. That's just philosophical agreement. It's actual steps.
The big problem in all negotiations is a lack of discussion of next steps.
That's deep. Who's the best negotiator?
Yeah, and actually probably my son, Brandon.
Yeah?
Yeah, he's ridiculously talented. I mean, he's ridiculous. And he's, and what was it? The quote the culture, talent code says that, people just noticed and started getting good at it. There's no such thing as a child prodigy. Just got interested when they were a kid. I mean, Brandon started learning how to negotiate when he was 2 years old. And he's been in it and immersed in it, since he can make complete sense. Before he can make complete sense. He's ridiculous.
What's his future? What's he want to do?
He has been involved. He run and built my company, and now he's gonna be an affiliated license and run his own operation. He's pretty much gonna end up doing very much. It's gonna open his entrepreneurial opportunities to do whatever he wants, and not have his dad say no.
And do a better job than that.
Most likely.
Yeah. Okay. Do you see some of the techniques that you talk about as manipulative?
Manipulation is whether I'm trying to exploit you or hurt you. Am I trying to manipulate a bank robber into letting me save his life? Yeah. So manipulation is like what to do.
So, but you don't see the negative connotation. If you're trying to bring a better future, it's not manipulation.
It's not. If I'm trying to bring a better future, if I'm being genuine and honest, like I compliment you.
Yeah.
If my compliment is genuine, that's not manipulation. Like, but if I think, you got a pair of shoes that are the dumbest looking things I've ever seen, and I go, wow, those are great shoes. That's manipulation.
So there's guys like Warren Buffett who are big on integrity and honesty. What's the role of lying effective?
Lying is just a bad idea. Lying is just a bad idea for a variety of reasons. First of all, there's a really good chance the other side is better liar than you are. They can spot it right off the bat. Secondly, they could be luring you into a trap to see if you will lie. Thirdly, the chances are they're going to find out they lied too. Eventually, it's really high. And then the penalties, taxes are going to be way higher than what you had in the
So long term, you're going to have the reputation of somebody with integrity. And the more you lie, the harder it is to maintain that reputation.
Yeah, exactly. And what's going to
Yeah. So we can just return to that question. What's the difference between a good conversation and a good negotiation? Can we, I think just reading your work, listening to you, there's a sense I have that the thing we're doing now and just conversation and podcasts and so on is different than negotiation. It feels like the purpose is different. And yet having some of the same awareness of the value of empathy is extremely important. It feels like the goals are different. Or no?
really close, fine line. I mean, I rolled in here not having any expectations, not looking for anything other than to have an interesting conversation. And to hear what was behind the questions that you were asking and what interests you. And then also your description of silence, the power of silence, something I'm going to take away as a learning point, help learn to teach others. But I didn't come in here, I suppose the negotiation is we're both aware of a problem we're trying to solve.
Right, there's no problem in the room.
Right.
Just to solve. except maybe like the human condition and
Insight, wisdom, learn.
how do you train, become better at negotiating in business, in life?
Yeah, just small stakes practice for high stakes results. I mean, decide what kind of negotiating resume. I mean,
What's that mean? Small stakes practice for high stakes. Small stakes. It's a small, little, incremental. Picking up girls at a bar. Or what are we talking about?
well, it can be. For some people, that's high stakes. Well, labeling mirrors. One of the basic tools of great negotiation. Labeling mirror and paraphrasing summaries. So you start labeling a mirror people that you just have in regular interaction, just to gain a feel for whether or not you can read somebody's affect or how accurate you read it to get better at it. And so, label the lifter or the grocery store clerk or the person behind the airline counter at the airport.
Putting a label on their affect.
Or throwing something at them that, because negotiation is a perishable skill. Emotional intelligence is perishable. So seeing if you can indicate that you understand it. One of my favorite labels to throw out on somebody, which, maybe level, I might look at somebody who looks distressed and I'll go, tough day. So several years ago, at the counter at LAX, well, I'm waiting on letting get to the counter. And a lady behind the counter is clearly making a point to not meet my eyes so that I don't approach. And she looks, and so, like, when you're next in line and they're making sure that you don't meet her. And I'm thinking to myself, all right, so they're having a bad day. So I walk up, and as soon as I approach the counter, I go, tough day. And she kind of snaps around. And she goes, no, how can I help you? And goes out of her way to help her. Now I'm practicing, but I also know it made her feel it relieves some of the stress. So now I'm going to TSA. Well, for people having a tough day, it's a good place to find a practice. And I'm rolling through the line, and I realize I had to toss the label out on any of these guys. And there's this guy watching the bags come out of the X-ray machine. And he's just kind of got a different look on his face. And I go, tough day. And he kind of goes, I can see from his body language, like, no. And I go, just another day. And he goes, yeah, just another day. He felt seen, but I missed, and I'm practicing. And I'm trying to stay sharp. So these are the few words. Just a few words to try to, quickly localize the affect. And not nice. Very, very, very handsome. I'm not letting it go.
I love it. Does the same apply to just conversation in general? Just how to get better at conversation? I think a lot of people struggle with insecurities, they have anxiety about conversation. Funny as this is to say, I have a lot of anxiety about conversation. Is that you basically do the same kind of practice some of the techniques?
Yeah, genuinely. Just trying to make sure you hurt somebody out.
Yeah. What's the best conversation you've ever been in? Except this one, of course.
Wow.
Not the best conversation, but what stands out to you as conversation that changes the person, maybe?
Well, there's probably been a lot of them along the way. But one that I remember on a regular basis, there's two. But when I was in the bureau, I'm at Quantico, I'm there for Finance Services, another guy from New York, a buddy of mine named Lon. And we're both trying to decide whether I want to try to get into profiling or negotiating. Because they're both about human dynamics, and both of us really like human dynamics. And we're sitting around talking about it, and we're talking about several things, and it labels. And I knew he didn't know what he was doing. I think he had picked it up. And I'd been talking about my family, quite a few things. And he said to me, and I never said this directly, that we were close. But he said to me, sound like your family's really close. And I can remember in the moment, like this feeling, just like I felt great in the moment. I mean, what he said just threw together everything that I've been saying and nailed the essence. And I have a very clear recollection of how good that felt in the moment. So a couple of years later, on a suicide hotline. Now I got this line in the back of my head. Line, technique, reaction, whatever you want to call it. Guy calls in on a hotline, and I can tell the dude is rattled by his tone of voice. I mean, just amped. And he goes, I was trying to put a lid on the day. I need to put a lid on the day. I got to put a lid on the day. And I go, you anxious? And he goes, yeah. And he came down a little bit. He was a guy that he was telling me about it. He was battling the disease of paranoia. And he's going to go on a car trip with his family the next day. And he knew that on the car trip, he was going to, twist himself into knots. So the night before, he twisted himself into knots. And he's laying out everything that he's done to try to beat paranoia and how much his family's helping him. And he's going on a car trip with the family because they're going to take him to see a doctor. And so I hit him with the same thing that my buddy Lionel said. It sounds like your family's close. He goes, yeah, we are close. And he leveled out a little bit more. And then he started taking off all the things that he was doing to try to be paranoid. And he sounded determined. And so I said, you sound determined. And he goes, yeah, I am determined. It'll be fine. Thanks. And that was all I said. So those two conversations, which are overlapping conversations, those two things really stick out.
Do those things, like through all the different negotiations and conversations you've had, do they kind of echo throughout? Like you basically, because when you empathize with other human beings, you start to realize we're all the same. And so you can start to pick little phrases here and there you've heard from other little experiences. They were all about, we all want to be close with other human beings. We all want love. I think we're all deeply lonely inside. We're looking for connection. We're just, if we're honest about it. And so all humans have all the same different components of what makes them tick. So you kind of see yourself basically just saying the same things to connect with another human being.
Yeah, there aren't that many different things that we're looking for understanding on or connection on or satisfaction. There just aren't that many of them, regardless. And so, yeah, you're looking for it to manifest itself in some form or another, and you're willing to take a guess on whether or not that's what you're seeking here.
What advice would you give to be better at these conversations? To me and to other people that do kind of interviews and podcasts and so on.
Wow.
I really care about it as well. Is there kind of, as a lifelong journey in this process?
Yeah, well, I think I would advise you to take that approach, which is the approach that you're taking. If you care about it, you're very curious about it. You see it as a lifelong journey. You're fascinated by it. You enjoy learning about it. And you definitely do see it as a lifelong journey, as opposed to this is what I can, if I can acquire this, then I can make it.
I mean, I fall in love with people. There's a kind of deep connection that lingers with you, especially when I'm preparing. The more material there's in a person, the more you get to fall in love with them ahead of time. You get to really understand, not understand, but what I mean by fall in love is appreciate, but also become deeply curious. That's what I mean by fall in love. Like,
yeah.
You appreciate the things you know, but you start to see, like Alice in Wonderland, you start to see that there's all this cool stuff you can learn if you keep interacting with them. And then when you show up in your PB, you realize it's like more and more and more and more. It's like in physics. The more you learn, the more you realize you don't know. And it's really exciting. And it can also be heartbreaking because you have to say goodbye. Goodbye, I hate goodbyes. I hate goodbyes.
Saves time, right?
Yeah. It reminds me that I'm going to die one day. Like, things end. Good things end. It sucks. But then it makes the moment more delicious, that you do get this time together.
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to. I completely forgot. I wanted to ask you about this. The 738.55% rule. It's really interesting. Is there at all truth to it? That 7% of a message is conveyed from words used, 38% from the tone of voice, and 55% from body language. Is there really truth to that?
All right, so Albert Morabian, I think is the name of the UCLA professor that originally proposed the 738-55 ratio and discussed it in terms of that it wasn't the message, but how much he called it liking. Like, are you not that you the meaning is coming across, but you're liking up the message, and so it's been extrapolated heavily by people like me to this meaning of meaning in 738-55, from liking to the meaning. What I've seen regularly is people that communicate verbally, the speakers. Tony Robbins, 738-55 guy. He throws the ratio. Go, that's it exactly. That's exactly how the message comes across. This is how we got to balance it. This is how we got to do it. Those that communicate principally in writing, so the meaning of the words are much more important than them. So they're deeply uncomfortable with 7 being the word. Because the content of words, the meaning of the words, when you're writing, it's so important that you hate to prove it that way. So I first of all, 1,000% believe it's an accurate ratio. But the real critical issue is not what the ratio of those 3 things are. It's what's the message when they're out of line. Like, what's the message when the tone of voice is out of line with the words? Like, it don't matter what your ratio is. You got a problem if their tones not match their words.
And that's put a measure on exactly. Even in writing, I mean, it's not just even in writing. It's not just the words. There's the words, but there's like a style underneath the whole thing.
Right.
And there's something like body language, the presentation of the whole thing. I mean, yeah, I'm a big fan of constrained mediums of communication, which writing is, or voice, like Clubhouse. There's a personality to human being when you just hear their voice. It's not just, you can say it's the tone of voice, but there's like, you can like, what is it? The imagination fills in the rest. Like when I'm listening to something, I'm imagining some amorphous being, right, doing things. When I get angry, I'm imagining anger. I don't know what exactly I'm doing.
And so you made me think of a funny story because we were talking about your buddy Elon before. And I told you, about, that I'd interacted with some senior executive. So I know that they love working with him, and I think he's an interesting guy, and they realize that he can be funny, and he jokes around. So they're telling me, they're on this conference call, just words, and a guy on the other line says something, it's a band. And so they said, they're on the phone, and Elon goes, "You're fired." And then everybody in the room with him can see that he's joking. But the person on the other side can't, and they're all going, wait, they can't see your look on your face right now. You gotta stop, because the guy on the other side is dying right now. He doesn't realize you're joking. So there was, there were the words, the tone of voice, but it lacked the visual to go with it.
This is probably funny.
I'm sure it was very funny.
Maybe not to him. Just as interesting to ask you, I don't know if you're following along the developments of large language models. There's been something called ChatGPT. It's just more and more sophisticated and effective and impressive chatbots. Essentially, they can talk, and they're becoming more and more human-like.
Right.
Do you think it's possible in the future that AI will be able to be better negotiators than humans? Do you think about that kind of stuff?
So definition of better or versus less flawed. Like the chatbots have been out there for a long time, and probably about 5 years ago now, a company approached us because they were doing a negotiation chatbot, and they said 2 things. First of all, I said, "Why are you talking to us?" So, well, in point of fact, We already spoke to the people that are teaching, quote, the Harvard methodology. And, the rational approach to negotiation just doesn't work. Rational approach just does not work. Our chatbots are not getting it. But we're showing around about 80% of the interaction a higher success outcome with these chatbots. And they showed me what they were doing, and it was still a lot deeply flawed emotional intelligence-wise. But the reason why that they were having higher success rates, the chatbots were never in a bad mood. And you could reach out for a chatbot in the middle of the night. So if you were talking to somebody that was never upset and was always available, then you're going to have a higher success rate. Negotiations go bad when people are in a negative frame of mind.
So the natural ability of a chatbot to be positive is just going to give you a higher success.
Yeah, and they're not going to get mad and argue. You say to a chatbot, your price is too high. Chatbot is designed to come back with a smiley face.
Yeah.
You say to a person, your price is too high. You go, how dare you? I'm trying to make a living. They can go off the deep end.
Unfortunately or fortunately, I think the way chatbots are going now, they will come back negative because they're becoming more and more human-like. That's the whole point. To be able to pass the Turing test, you have to be negative. You have to be an asshole. You have to have boundaries. You have to be insecure. You have to have some uncertainty.
Well, it's the difference between having boundaries and being negative. Like I can, if you throw a proposal at me, before I say no, I'm going to say, look, I'm sorry. I'm going to set up a real clear boundary without being negative. So a lot of people really struggle with setting boundaries without being negative, without name calling, without indignation, without being upset.
But see, when you show that you're not getting upset, I'm not just seeing that. I'm seeing a flawed human that has underneath it a temper, underneath it the ability to get upset, but chooses not to get upset. And the chatbot has to demonstrate that. So it's not just going to be cold and this kind of corporate, blank, empty, sort of vapid creature that just says, "Oh, thank you for saying that." No, it's basically you have to. The chatbot has to be able to be mean and choose not to be.
Interesting. I don't know. I'd be willing to see that play out and see how.
But I guess what I'm saying is, to be a good negotiator, you have to have the capacity to be a bad person and choose not
Really?
to.
So, I think you're just gonna have the capacity to set a boundary and stick to it.
Interesting. Because I think it's hard for me to trust the person who's not aware of what their deals. Because if you say you don't have any flaws, I can't trust you.
Yeah, well, it's a lie, right? So,
Right.
It's back to lie.
Yes. So you have to have a self-awareness about that. But to be able to control it, demonstrate being able to control it. I mean, this is humans. I just think humans, intelligent, effective humans, are able to do this well, and chatbots are not yet, and they're moving in that direction. So it makes me think about what is actually required for effective negotiation. That's what AI systems do. Is they make you ask yourself, what is it that makes you special? Any discipline. What is it that makes you special? Chess and Go games, which AI systems are able to beat humans at now. What is it that makes them effective at negotiation? What does it make them effective at something that's extremely difficult, which is navigating physical spaces? So doing things that we take for granted, like making yourself a cup of coffee, is exceptional for robots because of all the complexities involved in navigating physical reality. We have so much common sense reason to build that. Just about how gravity works, about how objects move, what kind of objects there are in the world, it's really difficult to describe. It all seems trivial, but it's not true. Because a lot of that we just learn as babies. Keep running things and we learn all that. So AI systems help understand what is it that makes humans movies. What is the wisdom we have in our heads? And negotiation to me is super interesting. Negotiation is not about business, it's about geopolitics, it's about running government. It's basically negotiating how we different policies, different bills and programs and so on. How do we allocate money? How do we reallocate resources? All that kind of stuff. It seems like AI could be better at that, but maybe not. Maybe you have to be a messy, weird, insecure, uncertain human and debate each other, yell at each other, Twitter. Maybe you have to have the red and blue teams that yell at each other in the process of figuring out what is true. Maybe AI systems will be able to do that and figure out the full mess of human civilization.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, the two thoughts that I had along the way was, I mean, anytime you're talking about systems scaling,
Yeah.
you're talking, my belief is chatbot systems, things that don't require decision making, just following the instructions. At least 80% of what's going on. Now, the remaining percent, whatever it is, does it require interaction? What's required? Like I'm not like I am not pro conflict, and I also know that there's a case to be made in the creative world that some of the best thinking came out of conflict. Reading interviews on YouTube, their admiration for some of the Beatles' best music came when they were fighting. And the song "One," which is, I believe, from the album "Cotton Baby." Those guys were fighting. I mean, they were on the verge of breaking out, and their appreciation of conflict could create something new. And then when I was in crisis negotiation unit for my last 7 years in the FBI, there was a guy that named Vince, great dude, great negotiator, and he and I used to argue all the time. And we had a change, and the guy who was in charge took me off to the side. He's like, "I can't take you. It's fine now." And I said, "Well, I got news for you. I think you come up with much better stuff as a result of our battles." And he said, Vince got the same thing. And I'm like, "So, well, if you have a problem fighting, why you have a problem?" But, there is something there that sometimes the most difficult insights, you rack your brains as to why someone is so dug in something that you think is so wrong. Yeah, maybe I think there's something.
There's something about conflict and drama that might be a feature, not a bug in our society.
I understand.
Do you think there will always be in the world?
Yeah.
So there will always be a need for negotiators and negotiating.
Well, as it turns out.
Why do you think there will always be more? So what's your intuition about human nature there?
Yeah, just because we're basically 75% negative, and then, for lack of a better term, I call it 2 lines of code. Like somewhere when everybody when we were little, somebody planted in 2 lines into our head. We don't know who got it, but somebody said something to us that stuck. And there are a lot of people that had some really negative garbage dumped in their brain when they were little. And just based on the numbers, what kind of opportunity they were given after, did they ever have a moment when they genuinely believe they can get themselves out of it? Like, what is it? One of Joe Dispenza's book is Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself.
Yeah.
Like, how do you get it, that 2 lines of code that either mean or well-intentioned, but stupidly speaking, adults said to you at the wrong moment and planted in your brain? Like, how the chances of everybody on earth getting that out, even the majority of people out of their heads, is really small.
What advice to a young person today say about how to have a career they can be proud of, like maybe somebody in high school, college, trying to figure out their way?
Yeah, it's probably taking a cliche of do what you love. But if you figure out your idea and pursue your idea and stick to them when it costs you. Like a guy I admire very much, Michael Gill, runs his Operation Crisp video in Atlanta. In one of his talks, he said, "Core values stick to that cost you money. It's not a value that really matters to you; it's cost. And stick to your value." Now, when I was in the FBI, I worked really hard, and the number one core mission of the FBI is to defend the American. So I could pursue that value at all times, which I did, or I could follow the rules. You don't have time to both.
What did you know you found with you? When did you fall in love? Whatever this process is, just negotiate.
I think it was in a conversation on the suicide hotline that I was talking about earlier with the guy who was through. When I thought I could have that significant of an impact on another human being in this short period of time, that's really cool.
How hard is it to get somebody off the ledge? So this question is a big question. Why the hell live it all? How do you have that kind of deeply philosophical, deeply psychological, and also practical conversation with somebody and convince them they should stick around?
Well, it's more clear the clutter in their head and let it make up their own mind. That was what volunteering on Suicide Island was really about. Just let me see how quickly I can clear out the clutter in your head. If you're willing to have it cleared out. Like, did you call here if you're actually proud? Or did you call here to fulfill some other agenda? So, are you willing to clear the clutter in your head? Not everybody is.
So once you clear the clutter, is at least somewhat hopeful chance that you'll continue for another day.
Yeah. And like, if you step back, like, very few people that commit suicide physically are up against it that high. Like, most of them, by and large, are pretty intact physically human beings. They're struggling with emotions. But then it's an emotional issue, it's not a physical issue. So if you would be a complete person, like a guy who's very big, a guy named Mark Pop, born great athlete, lost his eyesight and then became paralyzed. Like, he's an emotional leader. He's about helping people thrive and live great lives. Like, Mark was born, he was a spectacular athlete. And first he lost the sight of one eye, then he lost the sight of the other eye, and then he fell out a window in a tragic experience. Like, if there was ever a dude that was saying, like, living sucks, and if there's any doubt in my mind, something worse happens to me every few years. But Mark's about being alive and inspiring. So the hard part was navigating with somebody who's tossing it in because there's a chemical imbalance or it's the way they're interpreting the world. There's clutter in their head. Like, how can you help clear that clutter in your head?
And help them by themselves, inspire them to reinterpret that world.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah.
What do you think is the meaning of life? Why live? What's a good reason?
Well, I have very strong religious beliefs. Spiritual, 1,000%. If you were to try to confine me in a box, I'd be a Christian. I have tremendous respect for religion. I don't think any religion's got to be exactly. Again, I keep mentioning him. I'm kind of a mono Christian. I think mono's is like what, and I'm, my belief in Jesus is what I've got after Christianity. The dogma of man's application of spiritual beliefs. So, but that being said, I truly believe that my life is a gift and there's a purpose here. For my creator decided that I woke up in the morning because he still had some cool, interesting things for me to do.
And you have gratitude for having the opportunity to do that day.
Yeah.
Well, you do one heck of a good job at living those days. I really appreciate your work. I appreciate the person you are. Thank you for just everything you've talked today, for just being empathic. Honestly, you're a great listener, great conversationalist. It's just an honor to meet you, to talk to you. This is really awesome, Chris. Thanks for listening to this conversation with Chris. To support this podcast, please check out our sponsors in the description. And now, let me leave you some words from John F. Kennedy. Let us never negotiate out of fear, but let us never fear negotiate. Thank you for listening, and I hope to see you next time. How would a kangaroo attack you?
I'll come down. Choke.
The kangaroos do?
I choke each other, yeah.
They choke each
You don't believe me? You're on your video. They choke each other out. I mean, probably the most annoying one was obviously the one where I had to I was like, tap, bro. And he wouldn't tap, so I let him out.
I didn't get surgery. I didn't do essentially any rehab. I just have no ACL in my left leg.
So this is like
Surgery goes two options. Surgery, rehab, I think it goes all the nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what could possibly go wrong if you're the world's best grappler that hates you and you're gently provoking him behind the scenes every day? Well, I mean,
in Texas.
and you've stolen his brother, held him for ransom.
It is like a story of shitty Western.
The last part of a difficult wake up for me, I try to find a sad movie and at least cry. About a pound that really gets me on the line.
What are the rules of the streets?
Do you think if you're on steroids, you can finish the joke?
I mean, for sure.
Who knew that the cure to the Dagestani wrestling were the Aussies?
The following is a conversation with Craig Jones, Nicky Rod, and Nicky Ryan, who together with Ethan Pelliston and others make up the B Team, a legendary jiu-jitsu team here in Austin, Texas. It was formed after the so-called Danaher Death Squad, the team headed by John Danaher, split up into New Wave Jiu-Jitsu and B Team Jiu-Jitsu, both located here in Austin, Texas. There's been a lot of trash talk back and forth, including accusations of greasing and steroid use. And I, as a practitioner and fan of grappling, jiu-jitsu, and martial arts in general, am here for it. The best grapplers in history go at it, both on the mat and on Instagram. I like the people on both teams and train with both, and I'm really happy to see the exciting rapid evolution of the sport these athletes and coaches are catalyzing. This is the Let's Freedom podcast. Supported. Please check out our sponsors in the description. And now, dear friends, here's Craig Jones, Nicky Rod, and Nicky Ryan. Craig, can you introduce everyone?
Yep, so we got Nicky Rod here, brown belt, two-time ADCC silver medalist. Nicky Ryan here. That's it.
Who are you?
And I'm Craig Jones, also a two-time ADCC medalist.
Silver medalist, number one loser. And maybe a little bit more. Your bio says, widely known as the Black Belt Slayer, hails from New Jersey, the land of beats and biceps.
Yes, that's pretty accurate.
You also carry a lot.
Yeah, I keep it on me.
You have one today?
In the car.
That was a mistake.
Yeah, I get too close.
There you go. And you are Ricky, Ryan. What else is there? What else do you know?
Gordon Ryan's brother.
Ryan's brother. All right, so and you're all together part of the leadership of the B team here in Austin. Let's just get out some introductory questions. What in general accomplishment are the things you mentioned you're most proud of?
I mean, I'm proud just to not have to work a full-time job just to get by on the bullshit I've done so far.
Yeah,
Honestly.
just making money on what you love.
Exactly.
Yeah. What was the first time you made money on what you love?
Oh,
Fuck, somebody
probably
tore your
I
pants.
think maybe in Abu Dhabi I thought I was rich.
Would you spend that $1,000 on?
Probably something bad, probably drugs or something at the time. Maybe blew it at the after party.
That's a good introduction. What about you? What's the first time you made money? Or what's actually stepping back? Like, what's the thing you're most proud of? Is it a similar kind of thing?
I think I'm most proud of is for sure 2 ADCC silver medals, which hurts because you're so close to getting that gold. But it takes time. I'm understanding that sport of jiu-jitsu takes quite a while to be at the tip top to be the absolute best. So I'm just being consistent in my training and my craft and get that number one spot one day.
What failure or loss?
I don't know. I can probably have a pretty short memory, so my losses I'll just forget about. I mean, for sure, my loss at this past ADCC finals, that one's something big. I think I was gonna win. I mean, like, it takes a while to produce the skills or the reactions more so that you need to have to be, to be that number one pound for pound guy. And pre-ADCC, I was coming off an injury, so it took me a little bit to find the right mentality and physicality that I needed in order to, get the wins that required gold. So, yeah, it's just a process.
Interesting. You keep saying process, like it takes a while to build up. So you're not like thinking of a loss like ADCC is like a specific failure. So you haven't gone long enough in a particular process to being a champ.
Well, I mean, for me, I'm closing in on 5 years of specifically jiu-jitsu training. I'm about 4.5 right now, and it's just you constantly have these ups and downs in training where, like, as long as you stay consistent, you'll have a gradual raise. But it's still, you'll have these peaks and lows, and you're just trying to get better every day. I'm definitely not where I will be in a few years from now, but I'm trying to get.
Are you actually a brown belt? Is that a joke?
Brown belt, yeah.
You're a brown belt. Like how many stripes?
No stripes.
No stripes.
Stripeless.
Is that part of the process that you're working through?
Well, definitely part of the process. I mean, I think a black belt is just based on how much knowledge you have. Obviously, like, if you're talking competitive wise, like when I started, I was doing most black belts. It's just kind of how I was gifted from my wrestling experience. And the time will come when it's right, but I'm not in a rush at all. I just kind of think every day for what it is, trying to improve upon that.
I mean, I want to give him the black belt. You're right, so he's not ready.
You guys, like Snow Gi folks, do you take that seriously? Like the black belt? Or like how much does it play into?
Yeah, I mean, it's like throughout six, that it's based off of knowledge, not just what you do out on the competition mats. Because like you said, you have years of wrestling experience. Obviously, he's very physically gifted, so we grade based off of the amount of knowledge that you have.
Like, how do you measure knowledge?
I think teaching is a good measurement of it, like how well you're able to show the moves, and really make sure that you have an understanding of what you're doing.
That's an interesting rank. It's like something that takes many years to accomplish, and for a lot of people, it's truly meaningful. It's like it represents a particular step in a journey. But for you guys, it's almost like different because you just focus on competition. That I guess if you take it seriously, it is a big step for you too. It's like as martial artist, that's bigger than just being like top of the world competitor. So I thought it was a joke. You guys are actually taking it seriously. Like
That he's a brown belt.
he's a brown belt, and you're taking it seriously as a black belt, and like it's part of your journey.
I think by the time I get a black belt, I'll be number one pound for pound. I think it'd be pretty nice to accomplish that as a brown belt. Maybe toss a black belt.
Maybe get promoted on. What do you guys? Do you love winning or hate losing more?
I definitely don't hate losing. Pays the bills. I don't mind.
Oh, really?
Yeah, honestly, if I win, I feel more relief than anything, rather than like excitement and stuff like that. Thank God that's up.
I losing for sure, but I understand that it's necessary to get to where you want to be. And then winning is like, I mean, what I think is winning is probably the closest you can get to like the heroin or something. Because I mean, we're on like if you have extreme success in a tournament that you've been adamant about training for and competing in for a while, and you end up winning it, I feel like you're on that high for days at a time.
Heroin's gonna be better.
I think so. I'm a stick with it.
I'm looking to suck dick.
Suck that heroin. I guess that's a good point. Yeah.
You know, like because you come from a little bit of the wrestling culture. One of the things I really love is at the end of the match when they lose, there's no hope. They just run off. They're like almost pissed off. It's like some mixture of anger and frustration. So
I think sometimes that people like freak out on the mat. I think that's just to show everybody like they're acting like they cared a lot, and really maybe they didn't work enough to get to where they want, to where they expected to be, and they lost, and then they had this big boost in emotion like after the loss. But yeah, I mean, I think you just cry in the mirror, not to everybody else.
what have you ever cried watching a movie?
I don't think I've ever cried here.
Have you cried watching a movie?
Not yet. Not yet.
The Notebook,
I try to avoid those movies. Actually, I lie. Actually,
Titanic.
the last part of a difficult wake up for me. So I try to find a sad movie and at least cry. I bet a pound out. That really gets me over the line. Low energy cutting.
Dude. There's other following liquids I can talk to you about, but let's just continue on. What about you, Nikki? Love of winning versus
I'm a very competitive person, but for sure losing more than I like winning. I do think it's something that's kind of held me back over the past few years. Because, it makes it so that I'm not as active as I should be. Because it's like I really hate that feeling of after a match that you just lost. So it kind of prevents me from competing. So it's definitely something I need to work past.
So, like, when you think about competition, the possibility of losing yourself in that competition is a thing that, like, weighs heavy on you in the months and weeks leading up to it.
Yeah, my whole life, financial stability, everything depends on, my ability to go out there and compete and my ability to teach. So, it's a huge hit to the brand if you lose. So, leading up to matches, that's definitely something that's...
So you guys are like world-class athletes, but for me, more like a hobbyist competitor. I compete a lot. The thing I was really wanted to win, the thing I was probably most afraid of was not just losing, but like embarrassing myself.
Yeah.
Even actually winning by stalling, that was the thing I hated the most about myself. In terms of crying in the mirror, is like being too afraid to take risks after I'm up for 2 points.
I think you got to competition sometimes to take the emotion out of it. It's too easy sometimes to like think about my girls in the crowd and my family's watching. Like, I want to win because they're there. But at the highest level, if you're emotional at all, that's affecting you.
Yeah, it's tough though.
Maybe leading up to it. I think it's okay to be emotional prior. Like, if we know ADCC is coming up and we have a big match, like, definitely I'll go out and practice and I'll visualize, I'll put myself in that competition. That way when it's game time, it's like I've been there 1,000 times.
So not the actual competition for you leading up to it, like stepping on the mat, like hold the walk towards it, all that
stuff. Like, I'll do the same exact warm up for weeks on end until my competition day comes. That way, when I compete, I'm just about another Tuesday at practice.
Wait, like, how do you prepare mentally for ADCC?
I push it completely out of my mind. Don't even think about it. Try to avoid any visualization, any rituals, warm-ups, anything like that. Block it out until the second. Yeah. Try not to think about it. I just go to training to have fun, learn a bit. I try to approach competition the exact same way. I don't warm up in training. Do very little warm up.
And you step on the mat.
My philosophy is there's no warm ups on the street.
We're so fast.
All right, so you legit don't warm up.
No, I probably should now. I'm 31, but I'll just like in the gym. Take it easy the first time. I look around the room and it's fine. I go, I will have an easier first now.
So even for like high stakes matches, you try to switch it up.
Yeah, I didn't even think about it.
What about like all the social like Instagram posts if you want that match? You just make a joke out of it.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually kind of pretty silly. You know, just wrestling each other. You know?
Yeah.
We put the meaning into it, but someone that doesn't put the sport. Stupid.
Well, all of human existence is pretty silly. Like, what are we doing? None of us really know what's going on. We kind of have sex to reproduce. We get hungry, we eat. And then we're all chasing money and cars and whatever the hell. In a capitalist society, we worship a dictator and authoritarian regime. Yeah. So we get off on let power abuses and we just murder others. So we get off on it. Yeah. And then eventually all of us will die because the sun will run out of energy. Because colonizing other planets, so none of it matters. It's a good philosophy. Pretty good.
That's exactly what
How
I was
does the sun run out of energy? You caught me there.
It's burnt out. It's a nuclear fusion engine that eventually burns out.
like when you get tired of trying.
Yeah, never happened.
I try to get tired.
All right, cool. So you legit don't care about what doesn't really have you.
I try not to listen. Like if I win, I try to block out all the compliments, all the niceties and stuff. So I try to listen to it. It happens. Move on to the next one. You know, don't dwell on it too much.
Sometimes make you feel better.
Yeah, exactly. Winning or losing, with the right joke, if you make money off of the event that's just transpired, that's what's most important.
Excellent, thank you. I have a bunch of your merch.
Oh, nice.
I get
This one's the Jordan Burroughs ripoff.
all I see is silver. The way you pronounce Burroughs is very sexy. Okay.
I throw lines at people and I try to gauge their reaction. Like sometimes I'll say something icky and I'll be like, all right, that's probably crossing the line. You know, maybe we'll tone it down to the public.
So yeah. So it's not just right. You have to think this is crossing the line.
Yeah. I get as close to it as possible.
Yeah.
I feel like you can't
And
really
then
cross
cross it just a little bit.
just a little bit, yeah.
Speaking of which, you said that I'm Switzerland in World War II since I'm friends with both you and Gordon and Jan.
Very rich country.
Are you a Hitler or a Stalin, by the way, in this analogy? Would you like to be Hitler or Stalin? And should you make a T-shirt out of it? Or
I mean, a Nazi t-shirt, I don't know how well that sells.
I think it would, I think let's brainstorm on this one offline. I think since Hitler lost, he got second place in World War II.
That's true.
That makes you Hitler. Anyway, to the degree that you can you tell the story of how the time you've had with the Donna Death Squad and what he's put up?
I competed against Gordon for ADCC and the EBI in 2017. I remember I competed against him at ADCC, and then we had the EBI event, and I had a Kasai. I used to compete all the time, every week. I wouldn't even do the preparation or anything. I'd just be like, try to do seminars, make money, and then jump in and compete. I remember I showed up to Kasai after I faced him twice. There were like 4 locker rooms. They put me with all the DDS guys. It's just me and all the DDS, and I think we competed the weekend before. So I thought it was going to be super epic, but it was actually pretty chill. And the Kasai was in New York, and they suggested to come train that week. So I came trained, hung out with them a bit. Ultimately, the goal was to move to America, join a bigger team, just because that flight to Australia is death. Australia is so far away from everywhere. It's kind of like not realistic to base yourself in Australia most are in America. And then I went and trained with the guys, and they just had a massively deep talent pool in that room. Like show up to like meant to be 7 a.m. actual 8 a.m. class of Brazilians. There'd be like 100 people in there, maybe I don't know how many black belts, but a ton of elite guys. And I was coming from Australia, training with Lachlan Childs. Really, that room was pretty shallow, and like most people had serious jobs and stuff. So it was like basically me just training with Lachlan, maybe a couple of other guys, and then to go to New York and have access to a wide array of training partners and guys that are training twice each day. I feel like that's what you really need. You need people that can train as much as you are.
Yeah, humbled in that moment first.
For sure. Because my style at the time was basically a rip-off version of what they would do.
Yeah.
Leg locks came in. I remember watching Eddie Cummings non-stop and just seeing this guy rip people's legs off. And I was like, you know what? That's probably a good move. But that looks like an easier path to victory than trying to beat these guys at what they're good at already. You know? My philosophy at the time was if it's bothering old Brazilians, it's bothering them for a reason. It's probably effective. And that's the path I took to sort of try to rip off their moves. And obviously to go into that ring, try to do it to them, it's going to be a bit more difficult.
All right, so that's how it started. How did you end up here?
How do we end up here?
We're in Austin, Texas.
I mean, I like to think of Puerto Rico as Apocalypse Now. John Danaher as things got very weird in the jungle, and the teams went in two different directions. But honestly, I mean, it's not really my story to tell. I had some issues with some of those people. At the time of the split, I got along very well with John. I feel like me and him connected very well. I don't know why that was. Maybe it was just because he missed home and missed the familiar accent, Australian New Zealand accent. But, I mean, I basically followed Nicky, left with Nicky. Sort of that core group of guys left with Nicky. And I mean, I just backed. There was personal problems, I was back to you.
Got it. Just sticking on you for a bit. Is there a part of you that finds it heartbreaking that DDS split up? Is part of you miss working with John and everybody? Like, he's still in the case, but
I mean, I miss certain aspects of it, but I also do prefer the freedom of being part of it. It's obviously a very strict regime under John Danaher. You know, obviously, there's parts of it I miss. The parts the public doesn't see of John. The behind the scenes banter, I feel like he's very conscious of the image he portrays to the world. But basically, in closed doors, he's always making jokes, always finding, I guess, more in line with the Australian sort of culture. But you don't really see that in the public eye. So that perspective, I do miss that relationship with John. In terms of setting aside personal differences, Gordon was a good training partner. Definitely a good training partner to train with. But obviously, the negative things we can't really talk about outweigh all of those things. And we obviously had to make a decision to leave. But yeah,
that happened in the jungle.
the things out of the jungle.
That'll never be spoken of.
I personally cannot speak of. Yeah, but obviously, I do miss certain aspects. Like, I mean, nothing's all bad, nothing's all good.
Yeah, this goes back to your, like, everything you're doing is silly.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I don't get people take it so serious. Martial arts so serious. It's just pretty stupid, really. Especially in the gi, it looks bad. And then
I mean, it's pretty silly without the gi. It's just a bunch of apes.
What's silly about Ogi and what's silly about the gi and just beat them at bottom set. You know what I mean?
Wait, which one?
Sambo. Yeah.
I see what you're doing. Brother, you come to my house, defend my people. All right. We're going to go to every dark day. Like, how did you get over the details? What was that thing like? Is there, try to see if there's things that you remember that gotten from.
All right, so the way I started training with DDS, initially I was training for initially I was at a bouncer, right? I dropped out of college to pursue this fitness modeling career. I ended up signing up with the Wilhelmina models in New York, and I was like trying to get in better shape. While I was bouncing, kind of the talk of like, who's tougher came up between the wrestlers and a few of the bouncers that trained jiu-jitsu. And, they convinced me to go to a practice. And I went to my first practice over there. And for the most part, I just controlled everybody, got on top of them, was able to shitty submissions because I had an awareness of the sport. And I'm a fan of fighting and whatnot. So kind of understood it pretty well. And then soon after that, I joined a school. And my second week of jiu-jitsu, I started had pretty good success. I was like subbing a few black belts and beating everybody like pretty decisively with points and stuff. And about 3 months into training locally, I got connected with Gordon Ryan and John Banner up in New York, and I started I committed to make the drive there as many days as I could. At the time, I lived in South Jersey, and it was about a 2.5 hour, 3 hour drive without traffic to New York, to where in Gloucester County, like New Jersey specifically, but Gloucester County. Yeah, so it was about 130 miles, and without traffic, about 2.5 hours or so. But on the way back, man, it'd be 3+ sometimes. Catching that rush hour.
What year was this?
This was 2018.
I was there before all that. All right, cool. Anyway, you're doing the long drive.
Yeah, doing the long drive, and then once I won ADCC trials, I was able to make a couple months, and then I got my silver medal at ADCC, and I was able to afford to live up there in New York and Jersey area. So I lived up there, trained there full time every day, and kind of stuck with the team throughout the turbulent times. Myself and Austin.
The jungle.
In the jungle,
the things we shall not speak of. What other things that you remember that you learned from John Ballard?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely learned a ton from John and the team as a whole. Like, you have to be the guy that asks questions in that type of environment, right? Because you're not going to get singled out to be that specific star or the best guy in the room when you have all these other athletes. So I really had to seek out and figure out the kind of questions that I needed to ask. And once I became a bit more verbal by training, I'm expressing all my curiosities about grabbing to these guys. I think help boost my technique and my career as well.
Yeah, did you understand what kind of stuff technically you want to get good at? What fits your body? What would be good for you? What are your weaknesses and all that?
So initially, when I started grappling, I had an innate ability to just get to opponent's back. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna get into the back. Let me perfect controlling the back and then submitting up to be a rear naked choke. And then besides that, I really focused on defense, and then eventually came the body lock pass, where I'm really good at body lock passing my opponents down, and it just takes quite a long time because you have to find different sequences, and then there's always these an abundance of opportunities that your opponent gets with these specific sequences. So it takes a while.
Is there part of you that finds the fact that DJs put up
I definitely, having one person to go to that runs practice every day that's consistent, it was definitely a gift. But now I'm also gifted with many other partners. I'm thinking Ryan, Craig Jones.
Craig Jones.
Yeah. We have Ethan Crowley, Damian Anderson. So a full team of knowledgeable athletes that I can continue to go to with multiple questions. But yeah, definitely. It took me some time to adjust to training or to learning from, specifically my team and not just one person.
We should mention for people just listening, because you can't visually see, that Nicky Ryan is currently terrified, and Craig Jones is enjoying it. Anyway, can you talk about your Nicky? Can you talk about your time with DDS?
I started training when I was around 13. My brother Gordon had started prior to me, and I really just went into training just as a means to exercise and lose weight at the beginning. So I was pretty fat as a kid. I went to the first class, loved it, and then just started training every day at Gary's Gym, Brunswick. And then during the summer, when I would get off from school, they would take me up to New York to train under John. And, I just absolutely loved it. I knew what I wanted to do with my life at a young age. So I ended up dropping out of school actually after my freshman year in high school. So yeah, at 15, I ended up dropping out and just pursuing jiu-jitsu full time, training every day at the blue basement.
Like, what aspect of jiu-jitsu made you know that this is the thing for you?
It's just something I just enjoy being, on the mats every day. I love that there's problem-solving aspect to it. So, it's mentally challenging, it's physically challenging, helps me get in shape. So just right off the bat, I enjoy it.
Okay, so then go to the jungle. What happened in the jungle? And in general, I like this shroud of mystery that shall never be penetrated. That should never be like.
We've got a book now. It's kind of
What deal?
obviously that's high school. He's not writing.
Okay, I'll do the Russian translation. So, what are things that you enjoyed that you remember from Coach Enda?
Yeah, I mean, obviously he's considered one of the best coaches in the world. Very charismatic guy when you see him in person. I pretty much was, kind of raised in the DDS. That's where I spent the majority of my time every day. I obviously had very deep connections with John, my brother, Gary, even Eddie Cummings and stuff back then. So obviously I miss interacting with those guys every day. And it's like they said, it's good to have somebody to kind of crack the whip at you every day. And John was very good at that.
When you're like younger in your years, you have to get humbled, right? It's like the process.
Yeah, for sure. And
pretty good rule to get humbled.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I started training with them just when everybody started to break down. Gary was like the biggest name at the time, just because he had won ADCC trials already, and he had a crazy match with Kron at Kron Gracie at ADCC. But Eddie was just starting to break out. Gordon just started winning EPI, so I started training under John, right when everything was exploding.
What are the good things about life about jiu-jitsu you learned from your father?
Both me and my brother never really wanted to, work a full-time job doing something that we hate. And he was always, a very confident person. So he just went, fully started pursuing jiu-jitsu. So I'm very happy that, he did that, and I ended up following in his footsteps, because you can ask these guys, I'm a lazy sack of shit outside of the mat. So that's definitely one thing that I'm very grateful for.
That he paved the way, like you can make money doing stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And he was a big reason, why my parents eventually let me drop out of school, because when they were coming out, there was no money in the sport. It was very hard to make a full living. If you wanted to actually make a living, you'd eventually have to transfer to MMA. And I feel like Gordon and Gary and those guys were, some of the first people to make a very good living off of jiu-jitsu.
But this part of you find that you split up from DDS, but also from your brother spending time in the mat every day.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, growing up, obviously my big brother, I looked up to him a lot. So I definitely, like I said, I miss interacting with those guys. I was pretty much raised, in that basement. John was like, a father figure to me. So I definitely, miss seeing those guys every day.
Do you have animosity towards Gordon? Does he have animosity towards you? And what is the source of that? And do you think you'll ever be able to forgive each other?
Definitely initially, during the initial split, we definitely hated each other at the beginning. But it's definitely started to calm down. Actually, just prior to all this social media drama that's going on currently, he had reached out to me, and that was literally like the first time that we have actually talked since the split happened. So we didn't talk to each other for almost 2 years, and that was the first time that we interacted again. And overall, he wasn't aggressive towards me. I wasn't aggressive towards him. We were cracking some jokes. So hopefully the animosity is going down.
There's this Godfather quote I wrote down. Just to rewatched it from the Don Corleone, Vito Corleone. The strength of family, like the strength of an army, lies in its loyalty to each other. Is there some aspect of family that you miss? Of blood that kind of connects you, that you can count on?
Yeah, my parents, they both raised us. Family is everything. You never betray your family or anything like that. So I definitely, miss them from time to time.
Okay, imagine you're like 40 years from now, sitting on a porch with a shotgun, drinking whiskey, looking over like all the land you conquered. Looking back to this moment, is the reason you split up a bullshit reason? Or is it a good reason? From the perspective of the king who has now conquered the lands, have proven himself, and done everything?
I think it was definitely like a justifiable reason for the team splitting. Like it just, with the way things were going, it just was not going to work with all of us in the same room together. It started affecting training. People didn't feel comfortable with things. So I definitely think that it was a justifiable reason.
The things that happened in the jungle.
Yeah.
To be told about in the book. Is it gonna be an audiobook or is it just it's gonna be. And who's gonna voice it?
Might be a play.
A musical? Broadway. It's your singing voice.
Mine's not so good, but Nicky has a good voice.
Does he? An angel? I can have that. Okay. Speaking of the social media, I should mention that I've talked to recently to Gordon Bunch after phone call talking to you guys, and he had nothing but really nice things to say about you, Nick, right? He had nothing but bad things.
What were some of the things?
Well, let's just go to the social media first, because the social media stuff that he said publicly is just like a warm up. It's like foreplay, I guess. So Gordon sent you, Nicky Rod, flowers for Valentine's Day, posting on Instagram, quote, "I've been fucking him in every round of competition since we met in 2018. The least I can do is buy him flowers."
We didn't get the flowers.
Yeah, that was the question. Did you get the flowers? Never got the flowers.
He said it's the wrong address.
You did?
Yeah.
What do you think he sent it?
It was close, but it was wrong.
Did you appreciate the gesture?
I did. I was looking forward to the flowers and potentially chocolates in there. It was a bit of a letdown.
Can you describe your recent matches during the EBI match?
Okay, so EBI match, like that was a 20-minute match, and immediately match starts. I pull guard, and then I stand up. He pulls guard, and we have this like back and forth ratio that I dig for underhook, trying to get on top of me. You can't really have to find success. And then in the midst of me trying to work my body lock pass, Gordon's able to underhook the leg, and we end up in a entanglement, and then I'm able to transfer that leg to a 50-50 position, still in the leg entanglement. From that 50-50 position, I'm able to separate his feet and actually get a few pops, and actually said I broke his foot in that exchange. The toe hold, yep. And after that, we had a bit more. I was just working on top position, trying to get my body lock. Time runs out, and we go to overtime. In overtime,
Can you hold on a second or two? What does it mean to break the leg? I was very confused about it.
okay, so
Is this like a expression, or what do you mean? What part breaks the toe?
Okay, so in a toe hold, there's a few different grades of it. Like you can get a few pops and have some walking issues, and people consider that break. And then you can break it fully and have your foot be like I think what was the Achilles? It's the front of the Achilles or something.
I mean, probably get ligaments. I mean, it's funny. Like a lot of people say they broke something, but like to me, you break bones, tear ligaments. So I would imagine you probably had a grade 3 tear.
Grade 3.
How hard do you think is it to? I always wondered that with like a straight footlock. How hard is it to break the shit, or like the actual bones versus to tear stuff?
Depends how many steroids there are, and obviously how much you're.
You're one of the few guys that have actually broken bones in competition.
Yeah, have I?
Yeah.
A couple, yeah.
Which bones did you break?
Spiral fracture of the fibula. Very
Not
specific.
power.
Was it like a twisting? How did you break it?
Oh, it was a heel hook. We used to say heel hooks don't work, leg locks don't work. But unfortunately, age gets the best of all of us. He had some mileage on those ligaments
Yeah,
and the bone, I guess.
so it's actually what?
His ankle like disconnected from the tibia and the fibula, but the fibula definitely sounds pretty bad there.
The dynamics of that. Okay, anyway, you went to
Okay, we'll have an overtime. Let's see. Trying to hang. Oh, okay. I go defense first. Whistle blows. I'm able to escape in like 17 seconds. And then immediately after, I'm on his back. And he gets out in exactly 17 seconds. Oh, shit. All right. I thought I had a good start. And then he gets on my back right after that. And he's able to ride me out for pretty much the entire round. After that, I go back on his back. He escapes maybe like a minute and some change. I think where I went wrong in the overtime is I should have been less adamant about chasing the submission and more aware of collecting time. I kind of diverted my attention towards acquiring, time on the clock. It would have been in my favor. But yeah, at the end of my overtime round, I'm able to lock up a rear naked choke over the face. there just wasn't enough time to fully finish. I got a few seconds squeezed in there. I didn't have enough time to adjust it.
Do you think if you were on steroids, you would have finished the choke?
I mean, for sure.
That's what I feel.
If you're on gear, you're changing the biology of your body. You're adjusting your DNA. For sure, if I adjusted my
Yeah. You're applying your magic.
oh, I'm definitely not trying to get heavy inclusion.
Okay. So for people who don't know, the EBI rules, it's an interesting rule structure where the overtime you put yourself in like the worst possible position, and the task is to escape, and then the other person does the same thing. What do you guys think about that rule?
I like it just because. First of all, I don't like the idea of having to put somebody on my back, but I do like the definitive answer in the match. Like either you escaped in time or you got written out. So absolutely, like you get to define a winner. That's great. I'd much rather have that than a close decision. So,
What about you?
I mean, honestly, there's all the different rules. When I look at the rule sets, I just try to think of what rule set I can beat that individual in, and I sort of gear myself towards that. That's really the strategy there. I think there's some guys that that stall a lot. But you would love to have EBI overtime, but at the end, they're stalling until they have to give us a good position. But then there's some guys that are so good in those positions. I'm like, oh, maybe we just do the regular match.
What are the rules in the streets?
The streets, no time limit.
Yeah, that's one of them. There's also like concrete and cars and stuff.
Gliding.
Fighting, poking. Yeah, so you don't like that rule set? Are there some people you would prefer in the street as a rule set?
Me, probably not. I don't know. The EBI, yeah, I mean, it's tricky. It depends on the opponent.
What about you, Nico? What do you think about the rule set of EBI?
Yeah, so I think EDI is very good from a spectator point of view. People find it very entertaining to watch. People want to see submissions, and you're putting the athletes in a position where you have like the highest percentage submission in the sport. So obviously you're going to get a lot of submissions. My issue with it is a rule set that allows somebody that's overall worse at jiu-jitsu to win a match. A guy can go out there and just stall and just get completely dominated for the entirety of regulation, and then he gets to start on the guy's back. That's my one issue.
But also, I mean, is that interesting to see, like, the best people in the world have to be in a really bad position, and to see how good their escapes are, for example. It's interesting.
Yeah.
But it doesn't feel like a realistic. It's a fun thing to watch, but it doesn't feel like a real fight. It feels weird.
I'll claim it. If I start an overtime or something to finish them, I'll claim it. But if they submit me in overtime, I'm like,
You get to know. Yeah.
the issue is people like stalling to just for overtime. So where you got this guy, his whole training camp is just not get subbed and with overtime.
By the way, I have a rose behind you. Somebody gave me a Valentine's flower, so if you missed the one from Gord, I help.
I appreciate that. It's good to feel love.
All right. So, what did you learn from that match? Like, takeaways, speaking. Like, what do you need to work on?
Well, I learned that I am pretty good. Yeah, pretty good. I know exactly what my weakness is. It's the leg lock department, and I'm doing a lot to get better in that specific aspect. I would say attack, defense, re-attacks. Even if I wanted to offensively enter a leg, I can use work there as well. But I feel like once I solidify, like if I become a black belt specifically in the leg lock department, I feel like I'm being solid.
If you think you're definitively doing right, how would you do it?
buggy choke.
Buggy choke. For the listener, I don't even know how to describe buggy choke. What's the definitive conclusion of buggy choke? Does it work? It's a choke that you do when you're in it's the opposite of a dominant. It's not submissive. In a non-dominant position, bottom of side control.
Yeah, just embarrassing. Mission to get caught with, really.
Yeah, but does it work?
It works on certain people.
For the listener, he glanced over. It's embarrassing, but it's also really frustrate the opponent.
For sure, yeah. It's a new out of sport. I feel like the Rotolos brought it back into fashion, and even if you don't get it, because it's so embarrassing, at the first sign of danger, the top guy abandons ship, and you can basically retain guard by attempting a very embarrassing situation.
So that's the right of embarrassment.
Yeah, people pull out very quick to avoid suffering the consequences.
I think some people underestimate how good of a submission is. I mean, like once you're locked in there, not so many defenses for each other.
Are you? Is there an instruction on it?
J-Rod, actually, a little brother.
Oh, yeah, for real. You actually legit have. Oh, wow. Yeah, that's awesome. Check it out. So, I mean, you make a joke out of it, but it is real. Like, there's a system to it.
Yeah, I don't know if we call it a system. It's a good thing.
I mean, you take an opponent that was just winning in a
What's up, Meow? Can you hear me? What up, Sophia? How are you? Business from Prison City was a thing. What up, Dulal? How are you? Yo, how are you? What up, August? How are you? How's your life? What up? How are you? What's good? China's amazing. God, this thing sucks.
in a greatly dominant position, and then boom, in that same position, they're pretty much losing. You know, it's interesting.
What's the name of the? What's the name?
You know where Quezon City is?
The Buggypedia. I thought there'd be something like very Craig Jonesy about it. Okay, awesome. I know you don't want to sort of reveal any secrets of what you're working on, but in general, what does it take to be important, I guess?
Okay, so it would have to be some kind of choke. I think any joint lock or anything like that, he's just gonna let it break and stay in the match. So I don't even think he tapped from like a free jump. I think it happened with his. So putting his steps out.
So Gordon is somebody who,
Yeah, like he won't even tap in the practice room. I remember like I had a couple times in practice room, and he was just comfortable and working there. Like I'm not really putting much on it. I think he just maybe because of situations like that in practice, he kind of didn't respect my holds and ability in competition.
You've done that to me.
I have, yeah. I'll give you a little
Pump and then let go.
and that was only 10% right there.
Hey, don't get into math.
okay, is there some part of that you think is necessary to be a champion? Is there like this almost unwillingness to competition like that?
I think it's definitely something to be said for people that are just like willing to go that extra mile to take that damage to secure their victory.
Is there part of you that like hated that?
Yeah, I mean all of it. Anyway, yeah, the whole part.
Is there a John Legend song that all of you? Yeah, no, we're speaking on that. Okay, I'm sorry. One of the things Gordon asked, I forget how he put it, because I think there's a lot of words that would need to be censored or involved, but he said, ask them
Sometimes allegedly when I
how it
flew,
feels to have a
there's
0-5 record against me,
but it like
four submissions
really
combined.
comes off.
I mean, first,
It's
I
not
wasn't sure he could count the 5. Yeah, that's an impressive thing.
really.
Oh, I mean, I'll
Tell me about it.
Nobody beats me. For
I love you,
Lex, I did have a question. I did have a question for you. There was some controversy on your Twitter about a list of books.
Yeah.
And I was wondering why Gordon's book wasn't featured amongst that literature.
Well, it was only the first 30 books or like the first 20 books. It will, of course, be.
Something interesting about Gordon is the first author that's written more books than he's read.
Pretty good. If you face, like, what's your take on it? I think you guys kind of joke pretty hard recently on each other, but as a fan of jiu-jitsu, I'm all in on this ride. It's just fun to watch.
I mean, first of all, I don't think I go really hard. I think Gordon is pretty sensitive. He's looking for a large insult in a small insult. And for me, like Australians, we just attack each other all day, every day. And for me, like, if I see someone that takes themselves very seriously, that's like blood in the water. That's funny to me. To me, if I can just gently provoke and get a strong reaction, that's hilarious. Like, Aussies will just attack each other, and the first person that gets upset, he kind of loses the exchange. But I think that is very, very entertaining.
Like, if you were to beat Gordon, mental game off the mat be part of it.
I think it would be a factor for sure, but I mean, I'm never going to come out too crazy direct with it. Like, I find that, like, if you get too upset online and you're going crazy, I find that I'd be embarrassed to do that myself. Obviously, everyone's different. Everyone has a different style, But, like, yeah, I think the mental aspect would play a big factor. I mean, mainly, if I were to beat him, I would send him a message every day until I die, just to gently remind him that I got the last one. The last one is all that matters. We're not giving story. We're not giving story.
So, like, once you beat him, you're going to run for this.
I mean, run, but look back.
Yeah,
Look back
right. Ride your horse into the sunset. Okay. Oh, by the way, you talk very lightly. Very lightly. Alexander Volkanovski's opponent. Very lightly. Have you received death threats, or how are you still alive?
Like Gordon, I would say people from Dagestan take a joke very well. You know what I mean?
Do they really?
No.
Oh, like Gordon. Oh, sorry. I'm slow.
Now,
Aggressive.
honestly, Islam was pretty cool. I wanted to stir it up a bit, because like I felt like that was a massive fight, and I probably should have had more attention than it was receiving. So I wanted to just gently stir it up a bit. I feel like Sambo guys in the same vein as catch wrestlers, very sensitive. Like, obviously, there's only 3 people in the world that do catch wrestling. Sambo, maybe 10 to 15. So I figured you can really provoke them with that sort of jiu-jitsu sambo stuff. He's not the joke very well. The Russian fans, not so much, are very serious. So many smiles in Russia, you know. They didn't take it as well.
Trying to suppress the anger, the rage just pulling inside slowly. So you guys mentioned.
I like that you bring that up after we took it back Russia. For the record. Smooth segue.
I mean, that's crazy.
But I would love to travel with you to Russia.
That would be good. You might get good with me now.
I would be the first to turn to backstabbing.
I feel like I got in there.
All right. Are most of the top rappers?
What are you thinking?
I mean, it's hard to say. You know, some people look like shit and they're on steroids. Some people look excellent and they're not on steroids. It's so hard to tell.
That seems to be the general consensus of a lot of people on steroids. I'm always a little bit. I don't know. I'll be honest. I've never seen anyone take steroids. I've never taken steroids. I don't even know the term to use or like TRT, any of that. I'm very careful, like to not let my naivete lead me to take conclusions. But I do feel a little bit weird about the nature of it. That some people a little bit too eagerly claim that others are on steroids just because they're successful. But at the same time, it does seem that a lot of athletes will do whatever it takes to be successful.
Yeah, but if a sport doesn't test, you got to assume people are going to do it. And especially now, as more money comes into the sport, you got to assume more people are going to do it, you know?
Generally, like, do HTC and, like, does jiu-jitsu test?
It's actually encouraged.
Just get a pamphlet. Okay. They don't test? There's no test.
They test to make sure we're on steroids because obviously it's a big show for the UFC. They don't want to do it coming in out of shape.
Very nice. Do you think using steroids in that kind of context as sports is wrong? Like stepping away if it's not illegal?
I mean,
do you
from
think
my
ethically
perspective,
speaking?
I like to assume everyone's on steroids, and I feel bad about using steroids myself.
Yeah. use all of the steroids.
I'm on the 30th, it's TRT. That's the medical definition.
That's the medical. Okay. I'd like to meet your doctor.
Therapeutic use.
Therapeutic, right. Like, how do you just feel about it?
I mean, it is cheating. Whether they test it, I think it is cheating. Obviously, some people are going to say, "Oh, I should be able to get away with it." Makes it even playing field, you know. But it kind of becomes rational like that because it's like if one guy's taking this all the time, and the other guy is taking a huge amount, he's going to reap huge rewards in the short term. Probably be dead pretty early, but die a champion, aren't you? You know what I mean? So it's like, I don't know where the line is. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think about that? Do you think it's worthy to take health risks?
I think if you're
just for the glory.
I think if you're 40, about to die, looking at a cabinet of gold medals for wrestling other men, it's probably not going to hit the same way on your deathbed. You know?
What? Sorry. In which direction? Like, is that a good thing or not?
No, you're probably going to feel like, oh, I probably wasted a bit of health on that. You know?
Isn't that like the glory of it? You said other men. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I mean,
like
in my opinion, maybe it's a woman as well. But,
what'd you do with Gabby at that thing?
we filmed some new stuff on OnlyFans. We never stopped
it. As the love affair is also a work affair. Okay. I don't know. I there's something to that. I mean, like Olympic gold medalists accomplishing like heights, like sacrificing everything. The first 20, 30 years of your life, this silly little piece of metal. I think there's something beautiful that inspires a lot of people, and that's like the height of the human condition in a way. Like,
what else you survive? I'm just saying, you're in your deathbed early in life.
We all die. All men die, but not all men.
How many years are you willing to shave off for a gold medal?
That's a good question. How many? How many are you willing to shave off? Well, you're for silver medal.
For silver medal, I'd check a few.
I think 2 silvers makes it gold.
Yeah.
Worth 5 years?
5 to 10, maybe, shave off the bad years, enhance the good ones.
Well, I mean, you've sacrificed. You guys sacrifice a lot of your life. Do you sacrifice? Oh, you don't see it as sacrifice.
It's fun. I think training's fun. Be a bit adamant about it. Consistent. Gives you. I think we have a great routine, great ritual. Definitely enjoy the process.
All right. Well, do you guys know this is bro science, or I'm talking to bro scientists, but do you know how long steroids stay in your system?
Forever.
Oh, because it's like,
Hey, once you do it, you own it.
yeah. Just the knowledge. Yeah. All right.
I think it's different for each steroid, but I think some are faster than others because it's a urine.
You would think I would do a little research for this, asking these questions. Why do you think most athletes don't talk about secrets? Like, why is it such a secret? Why is it so embarrassing?
I think they probably talk about it like amongst the team or whatnot. Again, I mean, it's going to be more shady if it's like your sport is tested or whatnot. We're kind of in the Wild West and the grappling program. You know?
Yeah, but why don't grapplers talk? Because it seems cheating.
It's kind of insinuated as a bit of cheating, even if it's not like if it's not tested. I mean, still you're taking a person that could, maybe has good jiu-jitsu, good mechanics. You put them on the leg. There's something with a heel hook versus breaking your leg with a heel. Something as subtle as that can make big differences.
All right, this is going to be dumb, but is it possible that steroids are not a huge help in grappling?
I think if you're bad at jiu-jitsu and you do steroids, you're going to continue to be bad at jiu-jitsu. But if you're great at gear, if you're great at grappling, if you're great at grappling and then you also do gear, it's going to enhance what you're already good at and make you much better.
But like, how much is needed? I guess is the question.
How much is muscle value? Like if
That's
you're
the question.
If you're doing gear and you're not changing weight that much, like maybe it helps a little bit. But if you're gaining 50, 60 pounds of pure muscle, that's a huge enhancement.
This muscle is small human, yeah. Does it matter in jiu-jitsu? I guess is the question. Is it possible that it gets in the way?
I say muscle matters, but technique matters more.
I also think that it'll help you develop technique as well, because obviously, testosterone helps with recovery rate. On gear, you're able to train a lot more. Now, that being said, if you're not able to learn, obviously it's not going to help in that aspect. But if you're somebody that knows how to learn and get good at jiu-jitsu, and you add gear on top of that, you're able to do significantly more sessions throughout.
Okay. And by gears, there was.
I also think that you don't have to be as consistent in like your sleep and your food and stuff. If you're on here, you have a little bit of weight. But I mean, being consistent in your diet and your sleep, I think would help.
Since you use most steroids of any athlete I've ever met, do you think jiu-jitsu?
I think obviously it helps recovery and your ability to train more. But I think I've seen some guys go on steroids and suddenly they feel like the Incredible Hulk. And now in the training room, they start to rely more on strength than the techniques they had, and it actually, in some respect, hinders them and makes them gas more competition because then they're using more of the muscle they never used that.
So you've implied that you're a natural athlete.
You said that skeptically.
Is this something you do for social media to talk to Gordon? So he's not a natural athlete?
Well, I only pretty much recently on social media I had this rebuttal, saying that Gordon's on gear, and I only said that because after our match in our most recent match, the EBI post match, he accused me of greasing, which is like lubing up, so I'm slippery during our match. So
You did not.
I did not. I was checked multiple times before and after our grappling event, and he still, went out and accused me of this. So I was like, all right, I'm supposed to lie. I'll just tell the truth about your steroid use, which it shouldn't be that big of a deal in retrospect because he kind of admitted it previously. So it's I just kind of felt like I had to rebuttal, and I didn't do it immediately because I was like, all right, I know I have this podcast planned, so I'll wait to do it on my friend Mark Bell's podcast. Be a little more get a little bit more exposure on it. And I knew he was gonna like the bait. I didn't think it was gonna like the bait that hard. I know he's stressed out about the comment.
And that was the origin of back and forth.
Well, it wasn't so much back and forth. It was just I went forth and then he kept going back. Like I remember one of the guys at the end, they were like, Tortoise made like 68 Instagram stories, and 67 of them were all about you. I was like, all right, cool. Sure. We get followers each, shout it out our white ball program. Thank you.
Okay. Speaking of which, what's the B team? And why is it called the B team?
Craig,
Was there 18 people?
for me, B's the best.
Guys, what does B stand for? What does it represent? What is the idea? You know, Yamada Musashi Foundation. The bar.
Come on, let me join.
That's Nicky's philosophy with women.
Let me join, big dog.
So what is the B team? How do you guys run it? What's you can just look how you found it. What's it like?
Not in
I
many
mean,
years.
pretty much just a regular we started it as pros only pickleball above team, and we have me, Nicky Rod, Ethan, Damien as coaches. Am I missing something?
Your memory is
Impeccable memory. Yeah, JB coming. But just doing standard team. We focus on we lean heavily into professional.
You know, the stake is different.
Class structure, regular structure and positional sparring, open rounds. But we sort of took a heavy slant on market.
That's a very good point.
We really
Stake
tried to
is
blow up
different.
YouTube channel. Once we sell a lot of clothing, merchandise and stuff. So,
No
we
way.
just sort of took a modern approach to a standard jiu-jitsu gym. Because I mean, jiu-jitsu gyms are full of some of the most boring human beings on earth. So we try to highlight highlight the other side of things. I keep it pretty lighthearted. Yeah, the jiu-jitsu can be fun. I guess that it can be cool too. You know, it's not
Wouldn't
just
that be something?
steroid it up, autistic people. You know,
question from Reddit. Quote, need to hear
Wouldn't
some
that
of the
be
stories
something?
about drop-ins that led to the making of the channel video of the do's and don'ts of training and PT. Any fun stories?
anyone that stands out. Do you guys remember any?
Police involved ever?
We had a guy come out to keep him out. He was talking to the members. Yeah, well, I mean, that's just crazy, really. You know, like, I portray a pretty insane image online. I guess I am that a lot of the time, but at training, try to keep it wild.
You know, I
Around
people
training, I
in here.
myself can get wrong, but while training, I try to keep it pretty serious. But obviously, the image I portray lures in some of the crazier members.
I mean, like, the thing is, the gym you guys run is really professional.
You'll improve it.
It's like, a lot of hard joking is there, obviously. There's, you know, like shit talking.
Oh,
It's
hey.
pretty simple vibe.
Yeah,
But the persona might attract.
some maniacs. I won't say which place to treat it. So obviously, some places you look into the room and it's very, very serious. No smiles around. I'm just training Ruben Russia, but no smiles. Very serious environment. You know what I mean? And I definitely don't like that. I don't want to shoot some training, walking on eggshells. Don't know what the coach is, but it's like that day. I want to have a good time. Keep it lighthearted.
What was in the video? What are the do's and don'ts? Because like the address is public. Like anyone can show up.
Anyone can show up. Yeah, all the
Does anyone challenge you? Like to fight?
No, yeah. I mean, probably from gyms in town, they're probably coming down the line. But
I'm all in on that. I'll be excited as a fan to just watch.
I love the drama.
Not the drama, no. A little drama, a little drama voice is good. But ultimately, it's the best grapplers in the world. Kind of going at it, yeah. It's fun. Because maybe I'm wrong, but I think there is an underlying deep camaraderie at the end of the day when you're like at the top of the ball. Yeah, and you're like in the same town. It's like a shitty western, or like a big western. And he's like the good, the bad. So, I'm here just eating popcorn. Like,
Stir in the pot.
I'm not staring. I'm not staring. That one for sure.
Yeah, I mean, what could go wrong if your most best grappler hates you and you're gently provoking him behind the scenes every day? Like
In Texas.
and you've stolen his brother to ransom.
Yeah, it is like a story with Western. You now allow white belts to train with you. What's it like to open it up to the audience?
We haven't opened it up yet, but it'll be interesting to see. I mean, I feel like your white belts, they really understand what the training room is. You know what I mean? White belts early, trying to find their place at the gym would be kind of awkward and stuff in that environment. So I think you'll see those white belts coming in. Change the dynamic for the white belts.
Did you know Discord is almost called Wyvern before we picked their name? Not just out of that Wyvern. I think it's the greatest fucking name I've ever heard.
The more advanced classes,
Wyvern.
teaching more advanced techniques. So, yeah, we separated it.
Discord.
6 p.m.
So, but Twitch is the worst.
Saturday one as well.
Twitch does some.
How it goes. We're trying to do things different.
What would you call it? If you had to,
trying to do
I just call it bad.
traditional jiu-jitsu. We're not going to teach beginners wrestling at all. We're trying to split it at least 33% top game, bottom game, and wrestling. So at least create more rounded athletes from day one. Whereas I feel like most traditional jiu-jitsu gyms might have no gi once a week, that are done wrestling, very IBJJF heavy techniques. But again, the sport's changing for sure.
Just take that on. How does a beginner get good at jiu-jitsu? Like, given you're starting this by what's your philosophy?
Obviously, buy all of my instructions at full price.
Yeah,
not for sale. That would go a long way.
For those of you who are Russian lucky, send you instructions for all the forms of how to do
Yeah, just
I'll share. I have Automobile. Just send it to you.
we do. I mean, we do have the Mac and Show 50 discount code. You know,
Yeah,
offering discounts to help you
This
out
is
with
this
every
one's
match.
too big. My main comment video.
well, I
What's
got
it?
it.
Please on. I still love you.
But that's a your instruction. Both hilarious and one of the most respected instructions.
Oh, thank you.
Out there. It's incredibly good.
Oh, you little
Yeah, it probably
bitch.
loses to be battled, honestly, due to the seriousness.
Stop
I think it's going to kind of stop this. Give me some
You got
really,
Kevin.
gimmicky thing.
Well, I mean, some people don't even know if it's a real problem.
Oh,
That's a big hurdle I have to overcome to see
Let me
it.
in
Like,
this bit.
is that a real thing? That's the problem. But how does the wipeout get good? I think they just have to show up. Just have to put in the effort. Try to focus on using techniques and training rather than fighting to the death. You know, although that is entertaining.
I'm gonna be the first person.
Yeah, but
in
what
this
are the
motherfucker.
techniques that you focus on? Like, what's the
And I'm
process?
gonna
What's
live
the way
in
to
it.
show up? Like, how much drilling, all that kind of stuff. If you were to optimize the first 6 months of the beginner, there's a lot of people who listen to this and have tried it and curious. I have a lot of friends that are like jiu-jitsu curious. They're constantly looking for an excuse to start.
I think it's just got to be as simple as possible. You know, like we should be teaching more advanced movements. I mean, obviously, in the grand scheme of things, there's highly advanced techniques, and then there's slightly advanced. And I think trying to teach those guys real specific positions, even like real specific types of guard, is just beyond them. I think the best way to learn is through problem solving. And I think if you show the technique before they discover that problem, the learning is sort of held back. So I like the idea of using kid-style games to show them a problem and then use the techniques to fix problems they just discovered. I think that's the best way to learn.
Can you give an example of a problem?
What is
Show
this
them
bullshit?
different techniques. What are we talking about?
All right, so say you wanted to teach posture in wrestling. You could create a game where one guy, the game might be get to a leg or get to 2 legs, control a leg, like super simple. But the rules, the constraint would be one guy
Best
is
thing
forced
ever.
to keep an upright posture, and one guy is forced, well, not forced, but he's allowed to keep a bent to the hips, lower posture. And obviously, within that constraint,
Yo,
the guy with
hurry
the better
up.
posture
I'm
is going
Pacific.
to have
Gotta
more
take a
success.
shit.
He's going to have a
Do
better
you?
posture to secure
No, I just
a
want
leg
to
or secure both legs, and therefore you demonstrated the flaws of bad posture without having to explain it to
Fucking
them
find
before
me
they really
fine.
tested that out.
And then the result of
Motherfucker.
that is mental posture is better.
Yeah, you have that aha moment rather than just being
Evaluate that shit.
having it spoken to.
You wrote, Craig,
And then
I'm a big fan of constraint-based learning. What you're talking about. I love presenting beginners with problems.
Oh, I take a fucking brush every fucking time I get
got out. Issue by issue. Crossface and hip control squad. So what are some other examples of side control?
Yeah, that would be excellent. Side control. Like teach it like obviously we say secure crossface so they can't turn into you.
Does it work?
Much easier to have them try to hold someone down without explaining what crossface is, and then use that technique to address the problem and just to be honest. So I think you could do that in areas of like even more advanced. Say people have access to each other's deals. Most people stall out in that position and keep their feet crossed. I think a great constraint for both of them. You can't cross your feet. Now you have to learn how to slip the hook when they expose them and how to safely reattack your own. The constraint is you can't do defensive in that position. I think the rate of learning increases.
Why do you think the rate of learning increases? Why do you think that works?
Because you encounter more problems. Say in that situation, they're going to get you a lot more in whatever period of time you allocate the drill for. And if the legs across, I don't think the hard part's leading the legs to get to the submission. I think the hard part's practicing control while they're trying to slip it at a later stage, and then obviously trying to slip your heel when you're more dangerous, make you more comfortable. In that position, you're used to doing it.
I've never seen.
I think that probably teaching forces people to focus on. It's so easy to fall into focusing on the details of technique without thinking about the health. If you don't have that, you need to focus on like this shit's a thousand first principles. Like, why the hell get out of this? Like, why does this even work? Why does first thing? Why do you have mental posture? You get to start to ask this kind of question. It's kind of interesting because it's not obvious that mental posture is not the right posture for jiu-jitsu, right? I'm confused actually about that. I don't know about the correct posture. Yeah, like, what's the right answer?
I think mental posture is still good.
Even with the judo,
I can't get it.
Like, why are so many jiu-jitsu people get up high level? I've never seen the postures higher up.
I think wrestling posture is a bit low because it's not necessary. Right? Wrestlers are like low enough to where your hands and stuff like that. But in jiu-jitsu, it's kind of a mix between like wrestling and jiu.
Dude, if it asks me that, don't show this again.
So,
how many fucking times do I
I
have
think
to?
it's just a bit more relaxed and it's bent over, but it's not upright. And it's also not super low.
A bit more room for error too, because obviously the jiu-jitsu guy shot.
I've never.
It's going to be as athletic or as quick as wrestlers, as your wrestlers shoot.
So it actually comes down to
It's like
the fact that people just average,
fucking
top are not good at shooting.
I think so. Yeah, I think obviously,
47.
all the wrestlers in American stuff is starting super. You know what I mean? By the time they get to the same age we are, really, stuff they spend much longer doing the actual sport than the average guy.
And then there's another level of wrestling, of course, the Soviet bloc. That's just on that
What
cheap level.
You, an Australian rugby, a former rugby player,
Like American
one available.
football, less money. Is that what that is?
much less money, much tougher, I would say.
I just lost it.
Who knew that the cure, the Dagestani wrestler, were the Aussies?
Aussies. Okay, let's go there. Your front, your training part of Alexander Volkanovski, you helped to prepare for the Islam Makhachev versus Volkanovski fight. Who do you think, first of all, won that fight?
That's a tricky one.
How is that the tricky question?
I will say, man, when
I was a shit talking, how is that the tricky question?
when I was in the corner going into the field, I honestly believed live that Volkanovski probably needed a fit to take the victory.
So, what are the rules? What is
Or
this?
do you like legit?
Is this just like any pipe pen?
Who knows? Plus, I was aware when Australia was this fight. Because Australian judges said
Rules.
Australian would give it a fight.
What are the rules? Don't spam. Steps of the
Yeah, it was a close fight. I think sometimes you can win in the moment because again, everyone counted Volkanovski out. The crowd's behind him.